Well, I'll actually give you an answer, but a 50-50 chance it's gonna be wrong, right?
That's not bad odds, really.
Okay, well, we brought,
I'd run it by Jonathan, he knows the rules of order a lot better than I do.
okay. Process is fine.
Stuff that they have assembled as far as just notes on the pieces that have come back from Carlisle Workman. And I didn't know, since it's not like new information being presented, do we hand it out for you guys to have a copy and then include it in the next packet? Or how did you want us to distribute? It's not new info, it's just notes with previous info, like the memo that they sent back to us.
So it's your notes on Paul's.
It's RRC's notes, yeah, on Paul's stuff. Yeah.
Here, I guess Jonathan, while you're at it, I mean, along the same lines, this is something we've been working on, it's basically just listing the sort, so like, section A, we got that from Greenbelt or whatever, and then at the end it's got
So
the
it's just a
links.
complete list of sources.
It's got the links to the sources. So there you go.
And this is probably more helpful to send to me, so I can.
Yes, I was gonna send it too.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily necessary for them, and give it to me if you want to.
Yeah, so it was just notes, like, you know, like if they had sent
I'm
something.
gonna
for instance,
email this to you too, because the links aren't very helpful with paper copies, but just add it.
You can't copy and paste.
Oh, wait, there might be.
Where like it says it's in this.
Is this an updated one?
This is just, so like section E, like E1, like, we got this from the city of Morris, we adopted it from there. E2 and 3 was from Milan Township, and then this one on.
Is this just all your sources?
Basically, yes, for.
What do they call that?
It's not like AP format or anything, it's just some like.
It's showing your work, right?
Right, yeah, so for like.
I prefer the paper.
Not for,
Yeah.
for that draft.
So
this is
Carlisle
just
Workman
shows-
had
this
their
is like
memo.
our source list.
I don't know if you saw, we had the original
this is
edited
this one right
draft
here.
that we submitted.
It's right over here.
And then Carlisle Workman came back with two things, they had a revised, and then they had a memo, and so this is just all of our notes.
To this here.
Yeah, it's all the same information basically that's been included in all of your stuff, a little bit, like, you know, we just have notes on here. You know, like, if it's not included here, like, we need to go look at it so it doesn't get overlooked in this section later, like, yeah, stuff like that.
Thank you much.
And then we got the two planners coming to you, yeah?
These all know about Brady.
Okay.
Maybe we should hold off till Paul shows. He's second on the agenda. Can't hurt.
And then that's just a short list of, these are the things that they had pulled and said, they shouldn't live in a data center ordinance, they should live in the zoning book of ordinances elsewhere. So we just put them on a list so that we don't forget. Like,
Okay.
like if it needs to be added outside of the ordinance, we wanna make sure we go do it.
You find where it's gotta go.
Yeah, so that doesn't get, like, create a loophole, you know?
Kind of gonna start He's kind of the leader.
Oh, it's his.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, we're providing
It's his
feedback
draft,
to him, and if he's not here to get it.
Awesome, thank you. Awesome.
Well, I think we can get started, because Paul's part is 5B, though I think it's 5A is pertinent to him. So I'd say we take it up to there, and we'll see how close we are to 6 o'clock. Okay, with that said, welcome everyone. This is a different meeting. It's the Howell Township Planning Commission Subcommittee meeting.
Which is it?
Yeah, it's usually just that first line, not the subcommittee, but welcome. It's a little after 6:30. We're running a few minutes late, but or 5:30. I'm off to a great start. I hereby call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Wayne Williams,
I'm here.
Tim Bull,
Here.
Matt Stanley.
Here.
Okay, all are here. Pretty brief agenda. Do we have any suggested edits? I'm going to suggest that when we get to section 5, we pause if necessary for our planner to arrive, because he's pertinent for that discussion. Any motion to approve?
I'll approve that.
Mr. Chair, is it possible that we could, if the planner isn't here, we could go to 5A and hear from the Resident Research Committee and then go to 5B and pause at 5B if Paul's not here yet?
I initially considered that, but I think
You want
he
to
should be
wait?
present for the feedback from the Resident Research Committee, because it's
Okay.
directly
Good
about
point.
about the ordinance he provided, or the draft ordinance he provided.
So I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll support.
Motion from Mr. Bowl, support from Mr. Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, next up, we have our call to the public. And I was expecting a much larger crowd tonight, but I'm not complaining. Please feel welcome to step up to the mic, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments on topic and within a reasonable time frame. We've got some time to kill before the planner gets here, so we won't set a timer on you.
Come on, someone's got to fill our time.
Anybody doing jokes? Yeah, I was gonna say, any good jokes? Okay, well, if we don't have any public input, we will, we're gonna pause until our planning staff arrives. For the record, I too was stuck in traffic when I got here. It's a different commute though from Lansing and Ann Arbor.
It is.
Should have brought donuts and cider or something.
Pizza? Pizza party?
When I was sworn into the Planning Commission first time, I offered to bring a bottle of wine. Got shot down like immediately. Can't drink during the meetings.
Gotta put it away.
Hide it in a monster can.
It's raining.
Yeah. Badgerman on the phone. Badgerman on the phone.
I'm always driving, man.
I'm just kidding.
see the red. I see the reds as the comments from RC.
I have an idea. So one of the reports we submitted, we weren't really planning on diving into tonight about battery energy storage. I'd be happy to regale you guys with the riveting details of battery energy storage systems.
We can consider this part of the call to the public if you wish to discuss battery
Okay,
energy
sure.
storage systems.
That works, yeah. Okay, so Kristen Dennison, 7196 Manor Lane. The item that we included for suggestion on the ordinance was relating to the battery energy storage systems. Initially, we suggested using long-duration energy storage systems instead, but upon further research, sometimes the two things are used interchangeably, so just saying LDES versus BESS might not actually be particularly helpful. So the report includes a whole bunch of information about the different types of energy storage, battery energy storage specifically. As you guys are probably familiar with, lithium-ion batteries come with a pretty substantial fire risk. They're known for overheating and leading to thermal runaway. And the lithium-ion itself in the fire creates a whole lot of toxic vapor in the smoke, and then when you hose it down with water, fighting the fire, it runs off into the groundwater, the sewer systems, etc. So there's a lot of health risks associated with these fires, and when you're talking an industrial scale or utility scale battery energy storage, it's a lot bigger than your iPhone battery would be. There's PFAS, the forever chemicals, plastic components, carbon-based solvents, heavy metals, all these volatile electrolytes, and it can cause this like chain reaction down from one system to the next, and they've got dozens of them at a data center. So the EPA recommends, they've got a compilation of considerations and recommendations for communities in order to properly regulate and cite them. And they recommend consulting best safety experts to help guide installation and design before any get put in place in a municipality. They're probably more referring to utility scale, but again, when you're talking dozens of these things, utility scale, industrial scale for a data center, it's potatoes. Last year, there was a BESS fire in California, and it resulted in an evacuation of 1,200 residents. So that's another consideration, is there needs to be an emergency response plan before you've got these things in the township. And that is actually one of the rationale behind our suggestion to require a letter from local emergency and first responders confirming that they have the ability to respond to potential fire and emergency calls at a data center. They almost certainly lack the proper training and equipment, or at least a quantity of equipment to adequately respond to a number of units that would come with a data center. So that would allow them to
communicate what additional training and equipment they would need in order to be able to respond to an emergency call. They also recommend an isolation zone for large commercial lithium-ion battery energy storage systems. So again, that's something else that needs to be probably clearly outlined in an ordinance. So that's lithium-ion. There are alternatives, though. And backing up a little bit too, the lithium-ion doesn't actually store that much power. It can only provide like 2 to 3 hours of electricity for whatever it's providing electricity for before it needs to be, charged with more energy. And that's not particularly useful in the event of an outage, because we've lost power at our house for several days at a time. So that, like I said, there are other types of energy storage that are not lithium-ion, and they also happen to provide longer duration energy. They are also generally a lot less risky. One alternative is sodium-ion batteries. They're a lot less ethically and environmentally problematic in their mining, but they also don't carry the risk of thermal runaway. There's flow batteries using vanadium redox. They have virtually no degradation, 0 risk of thermal runaway. There could be leaks that could pose some risks to the environment, but generally those things are caught before they result in any significant damage because of routine maintenance and inspections and such. So there may be some risk, but it's a lot lower risk than the scale of what happens when lithium-ion goes wrong. There's also zinc iron and magnesium. So again, these are all abundant, cheap. Generally, they're domestically available, and they are far less risky and problematic from a hazardous emergency situation point of view. There's also, and those are all the different minerals. There's also other types of energy storage. Solid gravity energy storage systems is where there's a heavy weight basically that is lifted when you've got surplus, and then it's slowly lowered and it discharges the energy. This is actually similar to, I believe, using water. It's the same type of technology, to put it simply, but there's some issues there where you need either a really tall tower or a really deep shaft, and there's risks with that. There's also thermal energy storage from geothermal systems, but they can also carry some health and environmental risks as well. But the point is there are alternatives. There's more than just lithium-ion. And lithium-ion does seem to create some of the most significant risks. So we suggested limiting, rather than our initial suggestion of long-duration energy instead of battery energy storage, since, like I said, they're used interchangeably, more or less just saying some parameters for what battery energy storage systems should have, which is about domestic manufacturing, no lithium or lead components, no thermal runaway, and safety features to minimize air, water, and ground pollution. So the report goes into a lot more detail, and there's, looks like 16 sources if you wish to go down that rabbit hole further. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
There doesn't seem to be any benefit to lithium-ion.
I was struggling to figure out why it is the most, it seems to be the most common.
Then maybe is it a charging rate? Does it charge up quicker than the others?
It does charge fast, yeah. I actually talked to, I forget her exact title. I want to say COO, but she might have been something else, of a company who actually produces, they're a domestic US-based company who produces the sodium-ion batteries. And so she was kind of trying to explain to me all the different, how it all works. And I'll admit it's certainly not my specialty, but it seems viable and it, you know, they're making it, so. It exists.
Good to know.
Do we know why lithium ion is the front runner at this point? Compared to these other alternatives that you've mentioned? Cause I've heard of some of them also, right? I'm just kinda curious. Lithium ion is the one that's out there all over,
Yeah.
right?
I'm inclined to say it has to do with where the lithium is mined and the cost of the labor to do so in those parts of the world. And there's some ethical concerns wrapped up with that, but it brings down the cost.
So is the product of, is lithium ion, there's obviously a reason why they use it. Is it just, you think just the cost, or do you think it's because it's a superior end result for what they need?
I wasn't able to find anything, and again, this is just, you know, maybe it's out there and I didn't see it, but I honestly didn't see anything saying it was superior, because everything I was reading was the long duration. It provides, the lithium ion degrades quicker. It has a shorter lifespan before it needs to be replaced compared to these other minerals. The other minerals discharge for longer periods of time, like 8 to 12 hours versus like 2 to 3. So I'm hard pressed, I don't know.
Okay, and I mean, I don't know either, that's why I'm asking, right? So it's like, cause you're right, I mean, if they expend themselves in an hour or 2, 3, whatever, you know, why wouldn't you go with the bigger ones? And obviously, we never hear of the other ones, so I'm just kinda curious why that would be. Do we have, and I've heard of the California fire that you're mentioning, that was a big deal. And we hear about lithium ion batteries from lawnmowers and electric bikes and everything else catching fire. Is there any percentages of actual thermal runaways? Like, because they're using lithium ion, I'm assuming in data centers all over. I know they were in Arizona when I looked at them. They're in solar fields, correct? I mean, so.
I don't know, I don't have a percentage like in front of me, but I do recall it wasn't necessarily like this is happening every day.
Right.
But when it does happen, it's pretty catastrophic, was what I was taking away. So,
They charge fast, they discharge very fast at a very high amperage rate that you can't get out of other batteries. And the recycling of them, a lot of the lithium, the chemicals that are in them can be recouped in recycling those batteries, which a lot of other batteries, once they've spent their lifespan, they're just junk.
Okay.
So you can still get, they can pull the lithium back out of the batteries and use that to build another battery. And then the weight of them is substantially less than most batteries.
Okay.
That makes sense.
There you have
Yeah.
it.
Sounds reasonable.
I do recall Tesla was talking about their car batteries being recycled into data center batteries.
Oh, really? Okay.
So data centers use battery backup. I want to say I've heard just for like burps and power, like if because they gotta be 24/7, right? I mean they can't have any. So the lithium will kick in, like if there's a brownout or something, like just a temporary flash. Are they
line conditioning as well, to make sure that power is straight.
straight across? Okay.
Yeah, so the needing 24/7 power is something that is kind of a myth that a lot of data centers don't like to have debunked, but they're all set up with redundancy. So when one data center goes down, the computing load is shifted to other locations. They have to be set up that way.
Absolutely.
And so we've had 2 different experts both independently verify that for us. We were like, okay, cool, we know this is good because we're getting this information from 2 different people that don't know about each other. But yeah, so the one guy, he's a tech executive for US Bank, and he was talking about, he was answering actually at one of the town halls, he was answering, somebody had a question about like national security, like having a data center, does that make you more of a risk point? And he said no, because it's all shiftable, it's all redundant. So they're not gonna attack one because the load just shifts over here, or it shifts over here. So from like a national security standpoint, you don't Sweden that I was talking to you guys about at the last subcommittee meeting. And he was saying, you know, because they're all set up to be redundant, they don't need that 24/7 power of the whole facility. So when they go down, over in Europe, they only allow them to power like 25% of the facility on backup emergency power. So those backup generators are only allowed to be run to power 25% of the full operational capacity of that one facility, because they know that they're shifting that computing load to other locations. So in ours, I think we had suggested 50%, because it's not the standard here for them to be limited to 25% operational on backup power. So we said, okay, well, what's a compromise? 50% would be good then. So that was one of the suggestions that we had put into the ordinance.
Or at the very least, like in the report, it mentions and I believe there's that link at the bottom for the EPA recommendations for the, like emergency response considerations and the isolation zone considerations for, you know, zoning and siting and stuff, so. There may be, depending on which route it goes, there may be more to delve into. Ordinance-wise is what I mean. I know like Cohocton Township has a separate best ordinance in place, and
Yeah,
they already
they do, yeah, they put that in place before the data center ordinance that they started working on.
You know, they'll surely need, core systems and services running, you know, building security, for instance, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe put those servers into a hibernation versus a full shutdown. So when power is restored, they come back up quickly. Would be a significant cost savings then too, to not have to have enough generators to run everything at 100%.
Yeah. Especially if they get some of the longer down power times that we get here.
Right.
So do we know what Cohocton put in as far as fire suppression? I mean, is with their lithium ion, or their BESSs?
I have it saved, I can look, I don't know off
I
the
mean,
top
do,
of my head.
are they training their local firefighters for it, or?
I haven't read through their ordinance
Okay.
in several months.
The only reason I asked, cause I stopped at a fire station when I was in Arizona, and they pointed to the BESSs, which were across the street from them, and he said if they have a fire, we don't respond. They handle it all.
Oh, they handle it all internally?
Yes. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if that works, but that's what they do.
I suspect that's cross-training.
Well, they don't know if it works either.
Well, there's not much you can do with the lithium when they run away. You can take a lithium battery, throw it in the lake. There's actually fire department demonstrations where they take EV cars and put them in basically a swimming pool underwater. It's burning. Pull it out. Hey, it's on fire. Stick it back in. It's burning. They can't stop.
Yeah, that's a great point, something I mentioned in the report too, is like, even if you get the fire suppressed, it can keep reigniting over several days.
Yes, you can't put them out. They basically just have to burn until they burn out.
I'm sorry, but could I get your name?
Dave.
Dave?
Yep.
Cause you seem like you know what you're talking about.
We use these batteries in race cars.
Okay.
And when they very first started coming out, we were having problems with them going into runaway at the racetracks. And the racetracks are trying to put these things out, and you end up taking the battery out of the car, throwing it out in the middle of the parking lot, take a hammer, smash a bunch of holes in it so the whole thing burns up faster, and that's it. It's either that or it just sits there and cooks until it's done. But once they get exposed to air, that's when they throw a runaway and they'll stop them.
Well, we don't want that.
So we've had electric cars do that too, correct?
Well,
Teslas, but I mean, it doesn't, I know some of them get publicized, but it doesn't seem to be, I'm just curious.
They want to keep it quiet because it's a major hazard.
So to answer your question, they do have, let me scroll back up to find, they have a couple things in here. There we go. A fire protection plan which identifies the fire risks associated with the utility scale BESS system, describes the fire suppression system that will be implemented, describes what measures will be used to reduce the risk of fires reigniting, i.e. implementing a fire watch, identifies the water sources that will be available for the local fire department to protect adjacent properties, identifies a system for continuous monitoring, early detection sensors, and appropriate venting, and explains all other measures that will be implemented to prevent, detect, control, and suppress fires and explosions. And then they also have a setback chart, which looks like it's in line with that EPA isolation zone. I think the EPA it said like 300 something, might have been 330, but they've got occupied community buildings and dwellings of non-participating properties, setback distance of 300 feet from the nearest point on the outer wall, and then public road right of way and non-participating property setbacks as well.
That makes sense. You can't burn down your neighbor's business when your battery system blows out.
Well, and they would have to meet whatever the Michigan Building Code is and
course.
the International Fire Code. And all commercial buildings go through a fire department review.
Which I think
From
is
the local fire department.
what was somewhat recommended, and
So
I don't wanna get started without Paul, but I think we'll get to that.
we won't
point.
even take a plan in our office, commercial wise, unless the fire department's reviewed it and went through
Okay.
suppression plans and all that.
I mean, we probably all have lithium ion batteries
Yeah.
in our house.
I know in the residential solar systems, the backup batteries are becoming a popular thing. And they just put in the code that they need to be put into like a fireproof safe or fireproof room or fireproof box.
Oh, okay. And that's a county code or state?
That's international code.
International.
Is there anything that would say that the data centers need to bear the cost for our fire departments to upgrade to be able to handle this stuff?
That's
Yeah.
what we suggested, and I think we're gonna discuss this later. It was changed, and so we wanted to be sure we talked about that.
I'm sorry, I missed a few meetings, so I won't find me involved.
Did Paul know it was 5:30 and not 6:30?
Well, I forgot. Left at 5:30 going.
Who's got his number?
We rang him up. He's said he was stuck in traffic coming out of Ann Arbor and gave us an ETA of 3 minutes ago.
Yep.
I guess the other question, why
That's
is it
probably him.
5:30 tonight?
Since it was set up as a subcommittee meeting, that was just what was set up, because some people have worked all day, and it wasn't really intended to be a open meeting when it was set up, so.
Oh.
The man of the hour.
I guess so. Man of the late hour.
We're waiting for you.
Did you wait for me?
We did, well, no, we actually got through call the public and we're paused until you.
Well, thank you. I apologize to everybody and all of you. I had 6:30 on my mind and it was in the car and my reminder went off that it was time to be here, so.
Okay, well, our planner has arrived. We can move on to, bring up my agenda.
This is a subcommittee meeting, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yep, subcommittee meeting. We had to evict one member of the public because he was on the planning commission, which
So
made a quorum, so.
And
see
an
you
open
later.
meeting, since it is an open meeting, it was publicized, can we have extra members of the PC here?
I guess technically,
I thought so.
You've advertised it as an open meeting.
We did.
Yeah, I think it would be okay.
I've seen it in other venues.
Yeah.
We've never had that opportunity, so.
Yeah, it's not as if we're taking votes here anyway, so.
You're not actually making decisions. You're ultimately gonna be kind of providing directions. The Planning Commission will
Right.
ultimately make any decisions on this, item, so. So I think it would have been okay.
You know, I was just here 35 minutes ago. Sorry, that was a cheap shot, but.
No, it's deserved.
Okay, we will return to our agenda. We're at 5A for our report overview from the Resident Research Committee.
Okay. So first, I wanted to thank you, Paul, for taking the time to incorporate all the suggestions we had for the items to include and topics to address within the ordinance, particularly, especially that noise section. Each item that we included came from or was adapted from existing ordinances across both the state and the country. Many were specifically for data centers, but we did pull some ideas from other special use ordinances as well. So we compiled a list of those sources for each of those items we suggested, and I gave the hard copy to you commissioners, but I'm gonna email it to you guys, like Paul and Jonathan as well, so that everybody's got the links to click on, so it's easier. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to share our rationale and inspiration behind the suggestions. We have spent the past few days reviewing the changes that the planners came back with, and we made some notes of what we feel needs some discussion, some of which you also had covered in your memo about needing discussion. We did notice some discrepancies that weren't mentioned that we felt would be important to point out to planning commissioners to discuss further. There were also a few items that were suggested to be more appropriate additions to the general township ordinances and not the zoning ordinance. So we're hoping that those items can be passed along to the board or whomever is appropriate to do so, so that they can be discussed and passed and put in place before the zoning ordinance is done, because that's when the moratorium would end, and we don't want any loopholes or stuff like that hanging in the air. So in addition to the list of the discussion items in the memo, we're hoping to gain some insight and share our own on the various suggestions and changes that were made. We hope that for items that were omitted, we might be able to discuss and problem solve, discuss our intent and kind of problem solve and figure out how to potentially incorporate it if the planning commissioners agree it would be a useful thing to include after all. Even if the initial suggestion isn't feasible, maybe there's another way to go about getting to the same point. So our goal is to have a collaborative effort tonight to begin working to finalize the draft language, rather than continuing to pass reports and drafts back and forth. And we are optimistic that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And as always, we're happy to help provide additional information as needed throughout the rest of this process. So I'm gonna, did you have something you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I guess two of the things, that I personally wanted, some more clarification on why they were removed one was the economic impact analysis. I just wanted some clarification on why that was taken out, and also the environmental impact analysis. So if I could get some answers on that just for my own clarification, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Otherwise, I didn't really know what the plan was, or if we were gonna like go through the draft, like section by section, or what, but you've got the notes that we made on it, so, yeah. We're just kinda hoping to have the opportunity to
For the environmental section.
So Paul, will we get to those two sections as we go through your draft?
Yes, so what we have sitting here is the report that we put together with notes from you guys.
Yeah.
So my hope was to use that memo as a template to kind of go through. Generally, we incorporated much of what the research committee put together. And again, as I noted, you know, I recognize that you all did some heavy lifting, a lot of work on that, a lot of work went into this. So it's certainly appreciative. It kind of makes our job easier. Ultimately, you, the Planning Commission, members of the subcommittee, are the ones who are charged by the Planning Commission for kind of taking this, you know, through kind of the preliminary stages. As you know, ultimately, it would be the board who would do any adoption of a zoning ordinance amendment, but that is based on a recommendation from the Planning Commission. So, as we have done in the past, when there's a larger kind of ordinance update issue, we've created a subcommittee. The subcommittee kind of does the preliminary work on that. Once you get to a point where you think it's something that's reasonable for the Planning Commission to start making some decisions on and taking action on, then the subcommittee would bring what they have to the Planning Commission. So we usually on a staff level draft the first go round. We kind of do a little back and forth. Once you feel like it's ready, then we take it to the Planning Commission. In this case, obviously, there's been a lot of input and help. So we've been through kind of a number of meetings where we've talked about some of the merits of the things that you want to see incorporated. There's been some best practices that have been brought to the table. So we've tried our best to incorporate those suggestions in, but ultimately we're looking for your feedback on what we've included in this ordinance, and then some of these things that are in the memo. You know, we talked about either why we didn't include them, and in some cases they are already part of another ordinance or already part of the zoning ordinance in another section. And we can go through each of these, like, you know, there are, like the fee schedule, for example. There was a lot of input about what should be in the fee schedule. Ultimately, the township keeps a fee schedule for all of their fees, and so it would be appropriate for something like that to be there. Specifically to the environmental impact analysis, that's already something that can be part of the site plan review. So that's talked about in Article 20. So that's why we didn't want to kind of be redundant there, since that's already something that the Planning Commission has the ability to look at.
Yeah, but not before a zoning application decision would happen, correct? If you put it at the site plan phase.
You're suggesting that they wouldn't even accept a zoning application?
Yeah, so under application requirements, the impact, the economic impact analysis and the
When a rezoning petition comes in, there is already a section in the ordinance that talks about a rezoning, and it wouldn't be specific to a data center or a high impact land use. It would just be for whatever district the applicant was applying for. So
Well, as a special use, wouldn't it have to come before the Planning Commission to get approval for the special use permit?
Yep.
Like, so the application would be for that, right?
Yep, so the zoning is already in place in that case. So if you have an industrial zoning district that's within the, let's assume this ordinance has been passed, right? So we have the overlay district in the areas over industrial or industrial flex zones where a use like this may be permitted. Then the next stage would be for the applicant to come in with a site plan and a conditional use permit application. And at that stage would be where they would do a environmental impact analysis.
Okay.
And that's part of the site plan process.
Okay, so by us doing an overlay district, we wouldn't have to worry about a rezoning application coming in.
Right, the zoning would either already be in place or it would be a zoning that was consistent with the future land use plan.
Okay, so those could be, so how do we put those in there so that they're a requirement for the site plan phase?
So like I said, that's already in Article 20, that a environmental impact assessment would be done, could be done. The economic impact analysis is not necessarily a zoning consideration, and I'm not sure that the Zoning Enabling Act would allow for the township to put something like that in the zoning ordinance. We can certainly vet that with council. So there are a couple things, as I noted in the memo that I provided to if you feel strongly about including something like this that we're questioning, then we can take that to the township's legal counsel and just make sure that that's gonna be a defensible thing to put in the ordinance.
And this was the economic impact?
Yes.
So that's something that,
I would,
Albuquerque, New Mexico, the,
Mhm.
am I thinking of the right township there though?
I don't know what the county is.
They require that.
Yep, so
Like,
different
with
states,
Data center
Right.
ordinances.
different
Yeah.
states have different legislation that enables us to do different things. And so I don't believe that that is part of our zoning enabling act that would allow us to do economic analysis.
Is that something that we should leave in and let the township attorney look at that?
I'm
then,
wondering
or-
if there might be a different name to call it, cause so econ's my thing, and so what I was having in my mind is, you know, you've got several years of construction and you're bringing in hundreds of employees, like construction employees, they usually come and live in the area, so that short term drives up demand for housing turns into a zoning land use discussion as more neighborhoods need to be built, et cetera. But then the construction winds down at some point, and the housing demand falls. So it seems that, to me, that there might be some land use tied in there. So I don't know, like maybe economic impact, maybe it would be like a housing impact. That was just kind of my train of thought.
I don't disagree that these things are not related. And while I think it is appropriate policy discussion for like a master plan, I don't believe that our zoning laws allow us to consider those things. For better or for worse, right or wrong, you know, this is maybe more of a question for your legislature, not for the zoning ordinance, right? So, you know, we can't charge impact fees, for example, in our state, even though we recognize that new land uses will impact schools or roads or what have you outside of the immediate development area. But because of the way our laws are written, we can't do those things. So if you, the planning commissioners, before we take it to the full body of the planning commission, think that this is an important piece and want to explore that, then by all means, I think we would want to take that to legal counsel and ask that question.
So that would be the impact, economic
The
impact?
impacts, yeah.
Okay, the other one we kind of covered was already there.
Already in Article 20.
So the economic impact's the only outstanding one at this point.
Well, and we can go through this list if you'd like to.
So that was my suggestion before I'd like to make a few comments. I appreciate all the work the RRC's done, and I think it's been a monumental task. Paul, I would like to thank you and your agency for taking that information and trying to put it in here. And I think we're at a point now where we can go through it point by point off your report, if we could.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what you need at this point, correct, to go further?
Yep.
And if we have discrepancies, we can address them at that particular question, and that will keep you on task, I hope.
Yes, that would be helpful for us.
So if that works for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we just, how would you like to do this? Would you like to start at one and see if,
Yeah, I don't know who, if one of you wants to lead us through it, or are you looking for me to do that? How would you like to go?
6 of one, a half a dozen of the other.
so I did notice the copy that you gave us, the red are your guys, is the RRC's highlights, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our notes on there.
And we have green and yellow, I don't know what those,
Green was, I think we were just, as we were going through the list, like, okay, it wasn't added, we're okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was added, we're cool with that, but if we highlighted it in yellow and put a red note, it was like, okay, this wasn't added. We just wanted to either mention that it came from this particular ordinance, that's where we had gotten it from, or that maybe there was another, note, like, hey, when we went to look for it outside of, you know, the data center ordinance in our zoning book of ordinance, we didn't find that item that it's referencing, something along those lines.
okay. So with number one, it says fee of X% of the total proposed development investment shall be remitted with the application, and this was not included in the ordinance. And before we get much further, I want to compliment the RRC because I think there was a lot of cutting edge information put in there. And Paul had to go through that and because the laws are different in different states. And I know some of the information you got, it doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to us, I think. It's just legally what we can and can't do. And I think it's a learning process for all of us. So, and I was kind of curious to see what Paul would come back with because he had to determine, or your agency had to determine whether we could or couldn't do it, right? So,
So we did include for number one, a statement in the ordinance that the township board shall include a fee for this application in the fee schedule.
but that will be determined by the township board?
Yeah, so usually, I don't know, how often do you guys go through your, fee schedule? Every couple of years or so to,
We look at it yearly, but generally bring it forward every couple of years.
yeah. So,
Okay.
and then, you know, just when I've been involved in fee schedule updates, it's like you're looking to see, are we charging the appropriate amount to ensure that the township's costs are covered? And are we charging a escrow fee that, you know, we don't have to keep going back to the well every time? So that, and sometimes you look around at other communities and see what they're doing. With data centers, we may have to look farther or just make some best guesses about what it's gonna cost.
Okay, do we have like an approximation of a high impact land use fee? That we have no idea,
I mean, I think we could probably come up with something reasonable. We'd base it on something consistent with what you're already doing, the structure of the fee schedule, but then, yeah.
are we good with one? Any other questions?
If you wanted one for reference, that Albuquerque, New Mexico uses a $25,000 application fee. They
Okay.
had suggested that they used higher, but when I combed through their ordinance book, the only one I found was a $25,000 fee to accompany any application for a day.
So my only concern with that is like we already talked about, it being in a different state.
Yeah, oh
May-
yeah,
Maybe,
I was just giving
you know,
you
I don't
a
know,
number.
I don't know what that fee covers for
Right.
New Mexico or anything like that, but it would be
Right.
definitely be worth looking at to do some comparison. Number two, the applicant shall not be permitted to request township officials to sign non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, for the sake of accessing any and all information relevant to approving the project. This was not included in the ordinance. Would it be easier if I just read them, or and you can explain what you're...
Sure, yeah, that's fine. Just, our notion is that this is a township policy, and so it should be something taken up by the board.
I don't disagree with that. It isn't really a zoning issue.
No, it's not, but it should certainly be the township policy. I mean,
So we added that to that extra list of things to do outside of the ordinance.
Okay, we can move on from two? We're good?
Yep.
Number three, applicant shall notify all property owners within 1,500 feet of the proposed development of the special use request.
So there is some precedence for communities asking for additional, developer actions prior to, development of certain kinds. So like, I know, for example, Ann Arbor requires a developer in a downtown district, if they're doing a PUD, to hold a town hall meeting or something prior to. We obviously have the statutory requirement to do a public hearing for a special land use or rezoning, wherein the township would be responsible for notifying people within 300 feet. If you all would like to add additional requirements or increase the notification area, I would suggest that we either increase the notification area for all special uses or have some kind of justification why this one would require a greater than 300-foot radius. So that's a point of discussion that I would
well,
put
could it
back
be
to you all.
considered the zoning of the property in discussion, like for someone wanting to put up a subdivision? You might be okay with 300 feet, but somebody wanting to put up a smelting plant, you might want to extend that out further.
Right, so this is just a high impact land use ordinance, so this only applies to high impact land uses, so, you know, it's, I think.
I definitely think it needs to be increased. I'm not opposed to the 1,500 feet.
The environmental impact is why.
Well, if it's specifically for a high impact land use, I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter if it's a data center or anything else. And how would we go about incorporating? I mean, would it, so I see, it would be for any special use or just for a high impact?
The way this is written, we're just doing the high impact use.
Are we legally
ordinance.
safe with that?
I believe so. Like I said, I think we'd have to create a justification for why this notification distance is larger than our other notification distances for special uses. So if that's something that seems important to you, and I understand, this could be considered greater environmental issues that would be farther reaching perhaps than a daycare.
More controversial,
Yeah, I don't know, how do you two feel? Do you feel like it needs to be increased?
I feel that.
I don't think there's any harm in increasing it.
Okay. Got it.
When for? Before any public hearing takes place, the developer shall host no fewer than 2 town hall meetings open to the public for the purpose of sharing information, questions, and answers about the project. So,
I guess I kind of answered that question already, where there is some precedence for doing that. If you guys feel like that is an important step, or if you would like to keep that kind of discussion in-house.
so there is precedence set for it?
Like I said, I've seen that, like in Ann Arbor, for example, with
Okay.
PUDs, they are required to hold like a neighborhood outreach meeting.
I think that would have been a good idea in our last
Yeah.
application.
Would have been a great idea.
Sure. So I think.
We would have known about it.
I think we need to include it somehow. Would that be in the application process? How would that take place? Where would that be required, I guess?
If you want to do it, we'll craft some language to make it, yeah. I mean, I think it would be prior to a public hearing. It would be after application, prior to a public hearing. Because if we're requiring it, I think it's got to be an official step that's involved with this. Otherwise, how does the township monitor that it's happened, when it's happened, if it's happened in accordance with what you are intending to happen?
Yeah, no, and about that, this could be, let me say, I've been to some political candidate rallies where there's free food and beer. And everybody loves the guy. So I don't want to see that type of public hearing. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be a schmooze fest to try to,
Well, this is
It should be like an informative information.
this is a town hall meeting. It's not a public hearing, so, I mean, I guess
If it's held by the developer, it's gonna be a sales pitch.
it is.
Yeah.
And I think people realize that when they go, right? But
I think that's what is the onus of the township versus what is the onus of the developer. I think the onus on the township is to educate us impartially. That's not the developer's role in this. So I don't know, that feels a bit weird to me.
Can there be some verbiage put in there on how these town halls are advertised so people can be informed on when they're at? Because a lot of this stuff, I'm searching, trying to find out when there's meetings and where there's meetings. Can there be something that it has to be in a paper, on local radio, in local media, so that the surrounding people can actually find out about it?
well, that would be a press release to the local
That's
media
fine.
and paper. Whether they broadcast it or not is up to them.
Well, my shop, if I go to auction off a vehicle that a customer has left there, I have to post it in the newspaper that there's an auction on said day for said vehicle. So we should have some way to find out about this other than, oh, there was a meeting last night, did you go?
Well, we can certainly put it on the township website.
A Facebook post. that
Don't they
shows up
post it in the
exact-
Livingston Daily? 'Cause that's how I found out about stuff. The original data center thing.
So-
And I were looking.
we need to bring this back to the table for a minute. Historically, I'll answer your question and then we'll move on. So historically, I think the township has had a hard time getting public participation even when it's posted. So it's on the township website, there are newspaper postings, so it's just, I mean, can we do more? Yes, and I think that's a question that we need to answer. How do we get more engagement? How do we let more people know? It's not everybody's on social media, but the township does have a Facebook page now, right? So we are trying to make advancements to get there.
Kind of timing, because timing is a problem for a lot of people that want to be a part of it, but 5:30, they're just getting home, or they got games or anything.
So most of them are recorded, so, I mean, hopefully that will help. Most of our meetings do run a little bit later. So the town, well, let's take it back to the town hall.
Yep, and this is us requiring the developer to do this. So you could put parameters on it, but I don't know that you have the same kind of control in that meeting as somebody suggested. You suggested it's a sales pitch.
Sure. And, you know, the kind of control we can put on, it's not gonna be at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. It has to be when people are typically free and able to attend.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that one of the concerns that I think that I've heard is that, people always suggest that, there's been informational meetings, there's been discussions prior to the public becoming aware of it. I mean, I think typically with any project, the way we usually experience it, a developer will often come for a pre-application meeting. We'll give them kind of the rundown of what the rules are in the ordinance, what the process is to go through, and then after that, they submit an official application. Once that official application is submitted, there's either a public hearing set if one is required, or they get placed on the next Planning Commission agenda. And like you said, there's regular channels for those things to be advertised. I don't know how to get around that perception of, decisions being made prior to coming to the public meeting, but that's the typical process. Is the public hearing would be scheduled, the neighbors would be notified. This idea of doing the town hall, I think, I don't know, could be problematic because the township's not in control of the process or even the narrative.
Quick question, Paul. So let's say they meet all the requirements of this overlay district and the setbacks and all that, even if they have a meeting or whatever, if they meet those setbacks, legally, we can't stop them then, right?
Well, it's still a special land use approval. So you have those findings in the special land use section of the ordinance where you go through and there's like 6 or 8 findings that talk about compatibility with the surroundings, environmental safety, etc. So with a special land use, you get to do a deeper dive than just setbacks. You get to look into.
Well, I mean, if they meet all the requirements that we're asking out of this ordinance for that district, that overlay district.
Well, you've got, so like I'm saying, you've got kind of dimensional requirements, right? Like setbacks, height.
Yeah, the distance from
the
residential properties we're asking for.
Even noise ordinance requirements are dimensional. There are other elements like community character, consistency with the neighborhood. There are environmental issues, which again, you'd have to rely on the statements that are provided, the assessments, because this is all pre-development, so it's based on projections, and then you have to rely on your engineers and those experts who can read those things and come back to you and say, yes, this should be within the thresholds that you expect, or no, they're not. And if they're not, then you do have the opportunity to deny it. And there are quite a few requirements if this ordinance was passed today, even as it is without any of the things that we're discussing tonight. It's pretty tall hill to climb.
So we know there's a problem, we need to get the word out, how do we do it?
I think a group list is the way to do it. People could come to the website, say, yes, I want to be notified of township meetings, events, etc. And then, I don't know, weekly, monthly, however frequently, it's just a mass mail that goes out. So you'll hear about, like our, people just aren't gonna randomly hit the township page unless there's something coming up that they're really interested in. And they won't know there's something they're interested in unless that's broadcast. So that's a pretty easy thing to do.
I mean, the press release, I don't think is a bad start.
Sure.
I mean, is there some mechanism where we could require the applicant to post a press release before the public hearing?
Yes, I mean, we can look into the precedents for
Well, the
that.
township could do that too.
Well,
At the upcoming
Yeah.
meeting, we have an applicant for A, B, C, D, and E. Or, you know, whatever our agenda is for that period.
Can't there be a mass email mailer?
That's exactly it. I think we mass mail to send it out and include that same thing. We're putting it on Facebook. You can just copy paste it into an email.
But I think we get it, if we get into the weeds with that, that's a whole nother,
I think that should be saved for the township, like, I don't think that should be part of the ordinance. I think the township should have something in place where, okay, we're all now invested and we want to participate. So maybe you have somewhere that we can submit our emails or.
Yeah, to sign up for a newsletter, basically, is what we're talking about.
like an email blast.
yeah, I think let's talk to the clerk about the ability to set that up. I mean, I think that would be through the clerk. It would be
Okay,
their
I like that idea, I just don't know if it's appropriate for the high impact
Right, I
usage.
agree.
Right, so let's focus on that with what's gonna be in the ordinance. I mean, can we require a developer to do a press release to the local news agents?
I will look into that. I've got the note.
Okay.
Yep.
Say, we've got a local radio station, why can't we have it on WHMI?
Yeah.
Or what
Yeah.
if we had them host their town hall through a meeting, a special meeting, open to the public through the township? We could schedule a special meeting, just like we do all of our other special meetings. It would require, you know, the same notices that our board meetings get. And it's just that you're requiring them to go through that mechanism. Would
And
that be-
that's in addition to the public hearing?
No, that would be asking them to do their public hearing through a township public meeting.
So it's
So
an
that you have the
agenda
same,
item
yeah, so
basically
it would be
at a
posted
township
on the township
meeting.
website, it would have the same mechanisms that all of our meetings have now, as far as notification.
So yes, in addition to the public hearing.
Like when we do the park meetings.
So it'd be like a standalone public hearing for that high land,
But
high impact.
would it be a more informal town hall at that point?
I mean, that's what we're discussing, yeah. If that's not, I think she's suggesting that you just allow them to host that here.
So you have more control over it at that point.
Yeah,
It's
if you're
not
more
just a
control,
pony show.
we can have the developer sit in.
Can we work on that? Can we put
Yeah.
that in there?
Well, so I'll look into both the press release and some language for potential town
Okay.
hall.
So moving on to number 6, application shall clearly and explicitly name all owners and invested parties, including end users. End users must be the party apply for and signing agreements with the township. Not included.
So,
That's tough.
yeah,
Yeah, it is. I see a legal problem with that.
Now, the end users at the time of planning can change dramatically before go live.
So there were two things.
But
One, I
owners-
found with our billboard requirements, that right now our township ordinance requires that if an applicant is not the owner of the billboard, that the owner has to provide their information and sign off on the application for a billboard. So we do require that for billboards here in our township. The concern is if we have like a developer coming in who has opened up an LLC just to build this site, and they go under, this is a very large project, very large parcel of land, potentially half-built. What is our mechanism then to go after the owner who commissioned that to be built when the LLC for the development just folds? So that was part of why we were like, hey, we would want to know the owner so that the township has another mechanism other than just the developer's LLC that was filed bankruptcy.
And
Yeah, so-
Chicago, I know this is, sorry, another state, but Chicago, Illinois does require, all financially, I forget the term they use, like invested parties or financially interested parties have to be disclosed. For, yeah, like liability and if something.
Legal status in Michigan and something like that? Can we do that?
I don't know. I mean, that's, people come with LLCs all the time, so I don't know how we would do that legally. I mean, obviously, we do require the actual owner to sign off, or the owner to sign off that they've given the blessing to the applicant who's not the owner. But to understand who an end user might be, I mean, oftentimes developers build things speculatively. So if an LLC has an agreement with some end user, I don't know. That's a legal question that
Data centers of scale can have a lot of end users. I mean, you can host.
But shouldn't the township know who they are?
Sure, by multiple.
Right, I mean, we should know who,
That's, and I don't know if we
So
can put any
if it's
restrictions
for
on
the-
that either.
if it's for the purpose of ensuring that we are taken care of if a developer goes under, we have mechanisms for that. We have a development agreement, we have performance guarantees. And so I think the key is to ensure that we have a significant performance guarantee, which is incorporated into the ordinance. And that's always that's kind of a tricky thing to make sure that we are estimating enough. And we're not estimating, when we put performance guarantees in place, it's not to ensure that we can complete the project, it's to ensure that we can take the site and either restore it to current condition or make it safe, right? So like, if the site is all graded up, we can put the grade back, restore it with grass, take down a half-built building, those kind of things.
so I'm good with that. I'm trying to think of, so we don't have another Goshen, where we have a foreign entity that might come in and do an investment in our township.
Mm-hmm.
How would we protect against, or at least know what we're getting into?
So I don't know that you can make zoning decisions based on that kind of information. But again, if you guys feel strongly about that, that's something that I would.
I felt strongly that with the data center application,
Mhm.
that it was not a foreign entity, personally. I don't know how you two felt.
Well, I really wouldn't want the Iranian Revolutionary Guards hosting a data center. But I don't know the legality of that. Can you just say, Chinese Communist Party companies are excluded?
Well, would that be more of
I mean,
an attorney question?
That is 100% an attorney
That's
question.
100% attorney question?
Yes, and I've got a list of things to ask. the
Okay.
attorney.
Are we set with that one?
Yeah.
Because, yeah,
Any more questions on 6? Are we good with that
we're
one?
good with that.
It's an attorney question. He's got
That's some grayscale there, man, but
Number 7, complete preliminary site plan for all phases of development shall be provided with application. We could go by that one, that was added, so we're good.
Before we move on to 8, which is the applicability section, while we're still in the application section, if you guys don't mind, I would really like to circle back to the environmental impact study, because I was just looking at the findings requirement for special use permit approval, and one of the findings, like
In
even
what?
in Article 1606.
In our zoning book
Powell's.
of ordinance right now.
Yes. One of the findings to determine should we approve the special use or not is F, it will not have a substantial adverse impact upon the natural resources and environment of the latter parcel upon which it's to be located and adjacent areas, including but not limited to prime ag areas, forest and woodlot areas, lakes, rivers, streams, watersheds, water recharge areas, floodways, and wildlife areas. But I would argue, how can you do that if you don't have an environmental impact study with the application? For something that uses as much power as the city of Orlando and more water than the entire county, potentially.
So I didn't put it in this section because it's already part of the site plan application
Right, but
section.
site plan is after,
Site
the
plan and
special
conditional
use.
use go together. You can't make decisions about a conditional use or a special use without looking at the site plan as well. So those two things,
Okay.
those two things get submitted at the same time.
okay, so in the site plan review process, I noticed that that the planning commission has the authority to request if they wanted to these studies. So that was another question, I don't know, do you feel comfortable with it being left at the discretion of whoever the planning commission is, or is that something that a high impact land use should automatically always be required to do? That was my other thought process.
Should be automatic.
I can see it with a high impact land use being required.
Automatic.
You wanna go automatic?
Yeah.
Can we make it automatic?
Yep.
Sweet.
I'm trusting someone will come and tell the planning commission if they don't do it, so.
So obviously, I don't have it in front of me, and I have not read it, but I am wondering, obviously, the environment is a major concern, but is there something in there that adversely affects humans? Since we live here and there's all kind of data coming out that they're causing cancer and emphysema and everything else?
That would be, so finding A is that it, will not be detrimental to any person's property or general welfare.
Perfect.
Due to excessive pollution and
Okay.
whatnot, yeah.
What happens if they do?
They get strong over it.
Are we good to go to 8? Are we?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's-
It says updated. We're good with 8? Does that?
We had a note.
This is
all the
please
way-
see
it's all
note
the way
in
down
CW.
in the revised part of the note.
Understands from.
Just go to the wording. Some notes wouldn't fit in certain spots.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so the applicability, there's a note here we had about, it's on the top of page 7 of the draft. Page 16 of that whole document.
Well, there's a few of them, it's end of page 6 and beginning of page 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of them was, we had, a note in there that, on item number 2, under applicability, a complete preliminary site plan for all phases of the development that meets the requirements in Article XX. That was for you guys to figure out what article that needed to be in.
It's 20.
It's
You
what?
you nailed it. It's Article 20. I left XX in
Oh.
because that is the site plan.
That's so funny, okay.
That's funny because I thought maybe you were putting XX as just a placeholder, but
We did it as a placeholder, yeah. Okay, and then what was the other note? 3, all developments subject to this section shall require an application of special land use to the requirements of Article 16. So we just had a note that this should be a task item to verify that this is there, and, it needs to be added now to prevent it from being missed later. And then 6, we had highlighted all developments subject to this section shall be required to have a performance guarantee as outlined in section 20.15.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna take that one?
So we had, I think, Jonathan, you had mentioned at the last subcommittee meeting about, we had talked about the performance guarantees and such, and, well, if they started building one and didn't finish it, would we want to make them finish building it? And that's certainly not the intent. So the other place I've seen the performance guarantees for the decommissioning, which obviously, yeah, that's a great idea, but we had also submitted the report about using performance guarantees as a method of compliance enforcement, since the state law caps the fines to $500 a violation, and that's woefully inadequate. And I think the consensus is that that needs to be discussed with the attorney for sure. But yeah, we just,
So it was, if it's intended to finish a backed out
Yeah.
project, then no, because the decommissioning would then apply, was our thought on that.
Right.
If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
because if it's sitting unused, decommissioning would trigger. So I don't know that, I'm not, we just wanted to confirm what the intention of the performance guarantee in section 20 is supposed to be for. Is it completion of the project or is it for decommissioning?
so typically the performance guarantee is to ensure that they have done all the things that they're supposed to do when they're developing it. obviously the decommissioning would be triggered for decommissioning after the thing's been not functioning, right? So if it stops functioning, I think the decommissioning bond could cover that, even if they have not completed it to get started, we would still have that decommissioning bond in place.
Yeah, partially constructed is non-functional.
Right,
So, yeah,
so I think the
that would work.
decommissioning would still get triggered there. I think the in between, if we're talking about enforcement, experience tends to show us that fines don't typically do anything, no matter how high they are, right? Like, and there are caps on them, obviously. On less on a smaller scale, I think what oftentimes happens, because if you're finding people who are scofflaws in the first place, they're not doing what most people want to comply, right? Most landowners, most business owners, most people operating a site want to comply, and if they're out of compliance, it's because they don't know, and so if you bring it to their attention, sometimes a fine is necessary to actually bring it to their attention. But if there's somebody who doesn't care to comply, fines don't do anything because they're not going to pay fines, and ultimately you have to take them to court. So I think that is often the answer, and so if we get to a point where it's, fines don't mean anything or they aren't complying with notices of non-compliance, the next step would be to issue a ticket and get them into court. So, Jonathan, I don't know if you can speak to your experience with zoning enforcement or.
Not on this scale.
Not on this scale, but I think it's just.
You say we could shut them down then?
Well, again, I think court orders often end up having to be the case if they're not.
So could there be like a large amount of money in an escrow, like say $1 million, and then we would pay to correct the issue and they have to replenish that escrow account?
I've never seen anything like that.
But that could get around the $500.
I thought we had talked about that at one point, having a large escrow account, pull any type of
$1 million
penalties
would
out.
not be enough.
Probably not.
They need to have
So
both.
Henrietta,
An
Michigan's
amount to be
data
determined.
center ordinance, they do have a section for performance guarantee as at least the way I'm reading it, as a compliance mechanism. It didn't seem to apply to their entire data center ordinance, just a section about like maintenance and landscaping, I think. So that if they weren't keeping up with it, the township would draw on the performance bond to get it done. So I don't know if you could broaden that type of thing that they're doing, to apply to other aspects of compliance as well beyond landscaping and maintenance. Probably.
So we do require a development agreement. It could be a standard in the development agreement to address that, because a development agreement would end up running with that development.
And that would give us a mechanism to get there, because our fines are limited by law, correct?
Yes.
So we can't mess with that.
I'm going to put this on the list of questions to discuss with the attorney about what the appropriate mechanism would be. Because I think I understand, and assuming you folks on the Planning Commission are interested in this safeguard.
Sure, because it's,
Yeah.
the $500 means nothing, correct?
Not to a company like that.
No. And I think that answers your question, what what teeth do we have, can we have
Yeah.
any?
And I
right?
wasn't necessarily intending to have that whole discussion, it was more so just that note that we had, like, the
Yeah, that either that item 6 should stay, or go, so if it's meeting backing out of a half-finished project, then that should just be pulled out of there, that item 6, right? Is that
I think so, yeah.
under applicability?
What was the suggestion? I'm sorry.
Well, maybe it wasn't.
I guess
really
it's,
it.
yeah, it's hard to. So So
Well, I think getting an answer from the
Yeah.
attorney will,
Okay.
Okay. Number 9, districts permitted was updated.
yes, and that one, under districts permitted, if you go down at the bottom to the revised draft, we still have, it listed as an accessory use, comma, principal use, or principal special use with conditions if the property is located within the high impact land use overlay district. So it's not a principal use, we had decided wasn't, it's not gonna be a principal use, it's gonna be a principal special use, they have to have a special use permit for this. So we just needed principal use struck out. So it would be an accessory use as long as it's, an accessory, data center that doesn't occupy more than 10% of the main building's square footage.
What page are you on?
I am down at the bottom
Of,
in the actual revised document from Carlisle Wortman on page 7. Item C, districts permitted. We need to remove.
now I'm looking at yours, right? The
Yeah.
ones you guys added the red to?
Yeah.
And
so it
that's
should
on
be-
page 7?
Yeah,
Where?
C, district permitted.
at the bottom, not front page
Not
7,
page-
all
not
the way to the
page-
back.
So there's more page 7.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
two.
Yeah, those-
Yeah, cause you've got Carlisle Wortman's memo, and then you've got Carlisle Wortman's revised draft, so it's on the revised draft, page 7. And it's highlighted in structure in red, principal use in that paragraph needs to be removed.
Okay.
I'm not there yet.
It's about an eighth of an inch past.
This whole thing's bound
It
by-
confuses me with more than one page 7. Come on.
There we go.
Oh, mine
Bingo. Okay. Number C.
Yeah.
I'm at 10.
Want my computer? Here. Here you go. Look at this, right here.
What page is this, though? Show me what page.
So down here at the bottom.
All the numbers blend together.
I know, they do.
I'm looking for where it starts over.
Unless you didn't get the 7 or something.
So I,
What did happen with yours? You got a messed up copy, it's not you.
Wasn't me.
It's not
But
you.
anyway.
This section right here, districts permitted. It should be accessory use or a special principal use with conditions, not a principal use. We want all high impact land uses to have to apply for a special use permit.
Does that,
Something you guys had wanted.
and so this is essentially already covered because the article sections and amending section 4.13 to allow for data centers as permitted accessory uses or permitted principal special uses with conditions. So it's already identified in that area what you guys want,
Yeah, so
That-
it just needs to be struck out there.
Yep.
And then while we're on that topic, Article 4 is a residential article. So is Article 6 and 7. So that was already corrected on a previous draft we had submitted. We had corrected it to read 5, 8 through 13 for the articles that this needs to be added to. And it got swapped back to 4 through 13.
Gotcha.
So we just need the 4, 6, and 7 pulled out.
you got it? Because I
Yes.
don't have it,
Yep,
so.
it's not substantive, it's just technical.
Does that answer your question? Okay. We're going on to number 10, the additional application requirements.
So, do you have another copy of this? Cause Tim's copy, Kristen, do you have another paper copy of this one? It's not colored, but I do. We need, Tim's reading off of one that's.
You're gonna handicap me some more? This was a test, wasn't it?
I wasn't sure.
Never mind, I can use my.
So he's the one reading off of everything?
Okay. But we're on number 10.
Yeah.
So that was added.
We're back
I
at 10 in the
literally
front.
ran out of paper today, you guys, trying to
Exactly.
print all this stuff.
See notes in the CW revised draft below. That's here. These are just here, down here. There's item E1 was
Removed, requiring applicant to prove demonstrated need. This came from City of Maurice, Michigan ordinance.
Oh, so they're talking about the list of, application requirements.
Yeah, it's a pretty long list.
Would that be in an ordinance?
It's in, well, so we are adding additional application requirements for high impact uses. There was a list of their suggestions, and some of those items we did not include, as I note here, because some of these were not included because they're already covered in Article 20. They belong in the fee schedule, or they're part of the special use procedures required in the ordinance. So were there some specific ones that you guys identified that you did not think were already included there?
E1 that we had suggested got removed, and it was language that we adapted from the City of Morris, Michigan, their special land use, or whatever they call it, their special use for adult entertainment, actually. They had, like, the first three things for their application was to require the applicant to basically prove a demonstrated need and proof of no harm to the community. So we figured, why not require that of such an impactful use that.
Is that covered somewhere else, Paul?
I'm just going to see what their specific language was here.
A special use permit for a high-impact land use may only be allowed if the applicant submits clear and convincing evidence that, one, such a use will not create a negative secondary effect, such as but not limited to harm to private wells or the aquifer/groundwater they draw from, tonal, low-frequency, and/or infrasound noise, impacting residential landowners' right to be free from private nuisance, interference with the use or enjoyment of their property, and any decline in neighboring real property values, including in the long term. Two, if the use of a data center or cryptocurrency mining facility, that there exists, in fact, a proportional demand for services within the township not met by those services provided by the existing data services within the township, not met, sorry guys, not met by existing data centers in southeast Michigan. Long-term refers to any decline in real property value after the construction period, which may result in a temporary short-term increase in housing demand. That was item 1. Is that the one that you were looking for?
That's what I was looking for, yep.
Okay.
So it's very thorough. Our thinking was that this is generally covered by the findings of fact for a special land use, and most of this information is embedded in the requirements for the data center in the ordinance. So the pieces of the ordinance ask about all of these things, right? And so if you want to be more explicit, if you want to list these things more explicitly as was just read to you, we could probably include that.
Is there a legal issue with any of them?
I don't know that there's a legal issue with any of these things. I mean, like I said, they're all kind of generally similar to the findings that are already in your special land use findings that you go through.
There's the link, that list of sources. So you'll see E1, City of Morris, Michigan, and at the end there's the link to, so you could open their ordinance and like read it in the context of theirs to get an idea of what that means. So
Another thought I'm having is that if we were to find a way, after we've talked with legal counsel on the economic impact analysis and requiring the environmental impact analysis for high land use, those two items together, I would think, would answer everything other than the demonstrated need, but it would answer all those other pieces that are in there, so all that language could come
it could just be about demonstrating need if we get those other two analyses.
Demonstrating need is gonna be kind of gray for data centers. Because honestly, if they didn't think there was a demonstrated need, they wouldn't wanna build it.
Well, I mean, I guess.
Well, they want demonstrated need for Howell Township.
Right.
Well, the
Well-
other thing is it's speculative. The data centers, they don't know that these things are gonna be used. They're already talking about collapses in data centers. That in 5 years that these things aren't gonna be the need that they are thought to be now. So it's all speculative.
So that's actually related to a couple of the other things we have a note in the margin there next to the application requirement. One of the things in the site plan review section that the planning commission may require of special uses is a market feasibility analysis. That was another thing we suggested might be something that should be just standard for a high impact land use. And then Jim had a great suggestion, was to include the requirement of a strategic plan. I don't know if you wanna explain.
Yeah, I mean, basically you need to provide a 5-year plan, and the way the electronics change over time, they would have to have what they were going to do, which would increase how much usage they would have, and how much power and everything else they would require as they upgrade over time.
So it would lay out their usage.
So how do we address that?
And then usage and the projected usage over time. So a strategic plan would be very helpful in understanding what they're going to require over time.
It's common practice in all large businesses to have a 5-year strategic plan.
So, I don't disagree that these things are interesting, but I don't know how you evaluate those from a zoning standpoint. So what's your criteria then? Like, how does that help you make your decision? Those are the kind of things that I think you need to think about. If we're asking for this information, how does that affect the decision that you're making?
It shows sustainability of the business for
Well, not
So-
only 5 years, but 10 years going forward. They're going to invest a lot of money to build the data. They're going to want to make sure they do.
And you mentioned a lot of these were covered in other portions.
Well, I don't know that it specifically talks about a demonstrated need in the public, or in the special land use findings. So section 16.06 includes the things that would be required for any special land use for you all to go through. So you know how whenever you have a special land use in front of you and I say, make sure you all go through the findings and, yeah, so.
And we try.
Those include, will be harmonious in accordance with the general objectives, intent, and purpose of the ordinance in terms of their use, activities, process, materials, equipment, and conditions of operation that will be determined by any person's property or the general welfare of the surrounding area in which it is located due to excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors. And so that finding by itself really covers a lot of these things that were mentioned here and that I think we're concerned about. Based on all the information that we're required them to demonstrate to meet compliance with this ordinance, we should be able to have that information in front of you. B, will be designed, constructed, operated, maintained, and managed so as to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. C, will not adequately, will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services such as highways, water supply, wastewater disposal systems, police, fire protection, stormwater management systems, refuse disposal, and the persons or agencies responsible for the establishment of the proposed special use shall be able to provide adequately for such services. D, will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or future neighboring uses. E, will not create excessive additional requirements at public cost for public facilities, utilities, or services. And F, finally, will not have substantial adverse impact on natural resources, the natural environment of the lot or parcel upon which it is to be located, or adjacent areas, including but not limited to prime agricultural areas, forests, woodlot areas, lakes, rivers, streams, wetlands, water recharge areas, floodways, and wildlife areas. So those are the findings that you're already charged with any special land use to find. So I left that out because the bulk of it seemed.
And what were the
somewhat-
specific items that you don't feel were covered?
Well, I think the demonstrated need is not covered, and so if you wanna,
Yeah, out of that full list, it was the demonstrated need, as we've already talked about these, the economic impact analysis, environmental impact analysis, job creation report, site plan requiring that all drawings are to scale and have a directional indicator, site plans, requiring that all structures, surfaces, retention, detention ponds, setbacks, entrances and exits be shown, and then civil engineering drawing requiring site grading and drainage plan with the drain commissioner's approval. Those were things that we, and then, Jim's strategic plan, those were the items that we had wanted to see make it in the list that hadn't.
so except for the job creation report, the long-term business plan, or what did you refer to it as, the
Oh, so there was the.
strategic
the
plan?
Market feasibility analysis and the strategic plan.
And then is
The-
the site plan something that would happen in a different section, Paul?
Yeah, so all of those things that you just listed, except for the ones that I just repeated back, are all part of the site plan requirements.
Okay,
So-
and we can request those specific civil engineering drawings and stuff like that in there?
All required as part of the site
Okay.
plan.
Thank you.
So we were down to like one or two.
Yeah, so that, yeah,
After all that.
we can look into those 3 or 4 items
Okay.
and just make sure that, if those are things that you are interested in including.
I think they're relevant,
Yeah.
if we can incorporate them
Yeah.
legally.
Okay,
I think the strategic plan part's gonna be a little tricky though, because nobody's gonna come in and wanna do this with the intent of failing in 5 years.
well, and the job creation report, like, while I think that's interesting, I don't know that that's a purview of zoning or that we would legally be able to ask that. So those are the questions I wanna ask the council, and if you guys want us to press that question, we will.
Sure.
Okay.
To Wayne's point, you said that, you don't think they would go into business with the intention of going out of business, but with the way technology's going, Oracle and Meta, and they all know the way technology's going, they might have a plan to be out of here in 5 years. They might say, the way things are going, we're gonna have a space station up there, and we don't need this, period. I mean,
Now they're talking about
so.
floating data centers.
Floating.
Voting in the ocean.
So they might have a plan to be out in 5 years, knowing that the technology's gonna surpass what they're doing.
Well, at that point, then we've got the decommissioning.
Well, by the time we're done with this ordinance, 5 years will have passed anyway.
Yeah, there we go.
So-
Which means we need to move on, right? So let's go to number 11. Hopefully 11 will go quick, right? It says utilities impact statement for all utility providers confirming capacity to serve any required infrastructure upgrades and assigned acknowledgement that any and all such upgrades shall be 100% paid by the applicant. And Paul, you mentioned this was already in the ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yep. So we can move on to number 12. Statement from emergency services, police, fire, EMS, etc., describing their ability to respond to abilities and what additional training and/or equipment would be required to do so. A signed acknowledgement from the applicant that they will fund 100% of the cost of said training and equipment. So this was not included in the ordinance. The fire department, the Livingston County Road Commission, and the township engineer perform their own reviews and will cite their concerns in the review. And the comments are, this is still included in the CW revised draft. The intent is to be clear and upfront with the proposed high impact land use development, that any additional staffing and equipment or emergency agencies are to be developers' financial responsibility, not the counties or the taxpayers. From ordinances in Henrietta, Michigan, Cass County, Missouri, and DeKalb, Georgia.
I think we can move on.
We're good?
Well, I mean, we're still asking for them to pay for any additional services. We're making it explicit in the ordinance. As we stated, these outside agencies already do their own independent reviews. We required as part of Article 21 or 20 But we did leave the piece in that said that any additional cost necessary to, recognize to fight fires or anything like that would be borne by the developer.
Okay.
So this is like what I was talking about with the best, like just making sure that they've got the ability to respond, and if not, what will they need? And.
But that's
that they
something for
get
the
it.
fire department to
Yeah.
determine, right? I mean,
Right, so they have to approach the fire department and say like, here's what we'll have, review it, please. And
Okay.
then the fire department,
but we're covered with that,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Before they go into operation, they're gonna have a
Yeah.
master plan of their own,
Right.
which is what
Yeah.
they
They
should
can't
be
rely on
subject to,
airport.
right?
yeah.
Cover everything.
Number 13, stormwater management plan demonstrating their commitment to minimizing runoff to the greatest extent possibly by adhering to the drain commissioner's recommendation and requirements. This was not included in the ordinance. The township engineer reviews the plans and will cite any concerns with stormwater along with the drain commissioner. This is required for site plan reviews in section 20.08D. And the comments are, this was recommended language from the Livingston County Drain Commissioner.
Yeah, I talked to, Brian at the first town hall event at Cleary University. And I had mentioned, we were working on ordinance research and stuff. He said, it would be really useful to have language to have in there. And he rattled off some language and I wrote it down. And so that's what we provided,
So that came from the drain.
that came from him.
So would this be something that they could send back in their review?
So he may have already, he may be recommending that for communities that don't have the same stormwater requirements that the township already has. We have stringent stormwater requirements, so.
So it's something that's
Yeah,
already.
people
Already-
complain about it quite
yeah.
frequently.
On any other site plan, we have the drain commissioner's approval or
Yeah.
review or letter.
We're good there, we can move on?
Yep. Good with number 14?
Cooling system specs included, may need further discussion. What were your concerns, Paul?
I don't know that I had any. I mean, I think we generally included what they recommended.
Okay.
So,
An escrow, 15, an escrow shall be funded with X at all times through occupancy, not included in the ordinance. This can be included in the fee schedule. And then it says, please see note below CW revised draft, which I don't think I have.
do you have a reference for where that is in the draft? Barely.
The escrow, okay. I think it's back on the application requirements page, section D, which is page 7 of the draft. I'm pretty sure. So a lot of the ordinances we were looking at, it says, an application fee set by resolution of the township board or whatever, but then also that there should be an escrow funded. I don't know that I've seen a lot of specific amounts, but the escrow is mentioned in there as part of the application requirement. So it was removed, and so we just.
I think it was to fund some of those initial,
The-
studies that were
Because they need to
requested
be, the studies have to be done
by
by
an independent, third-party consultant
chosen
chosen
by
by the township, so we wanted the township to have access to money to be able to choose their own, consultants instead of a developer choosing them
Yep.
for you.
You don't want to spoon fed to you, I get it.
So the township already has the ability to hire third-party consultants. That's planning, engineering, if they need an expert that's not, expertise that's not covered in one of those fields, they have the
Who would
ability.
pay for that?
I'm sorry?
Who would pay for that?
The developer's escrow. So we would,
So we do have an escrow account.
so we'd have an escrow account, and that gets back to making sure that we set that escrow to be appropriate for this particular use, so,
How would we determine that?
guessing and checking. We already have the ability, if an escrow account is depleted through the review process to go back and ask the developer for additional funds.
And the township currently has full discretion of who they can use that for without any input from the developer.
Correct.
Okay.
So 16, list of regulated substance, including cooling solutions, that's included. 17, signed acknowledgement from the developer and end user of our public notification and involvement process and our high impact land use overlay district and data center ordinances. Not included, if a development agreement is required, this can be incorporated there. Have we already covered, we had covered that earlier, didn't we?
Yep, they look like they're okay with that, and we
Okay.
require development agreements. I
Number-
think that we would want to put a standard development agreement together once this is in place to cover a lot of these items, and so that would be something that we would look to the township attorney to do.
Okay.
Like as a starting draft document,
Yep.
Paul, and then they would be able to edit it for each.
Specific
individual.
uses, yeah.
Okay.
But we would have some of these kind of like standard things in there that we would always want to see.
Okay.
18, signed acknowledgement from the applicant and end user that the facility would not be considered for IFT abatements. Not included, this would be a township board policy decision, not a zoning ordinance regulation. I think that's correct. So,
What is an IFT abatement?
yeah.
Industrial,
Industrial facilities tax. Property tax break.
I got it. All right.
Construction lighting photometric diagram is added in the ordinance. Site design, siting requirements. Are we all, what are the, how does
Is
this,
that where yours messes up, Tim?
it might be, where's yours go?
Ours is the same as yours.
Goes to here?
Yeah.
All of that was not.
All this is
included.
part of that ordinance there.
For the citing
So it was
requirements.
not added,
Site
I'm not gonna
design.
read all that.
Yeah.
Not added in the ordinances, mentioned the table above and all data centers except for ancillary have to go through a special land use as they are permitted principal special uses with conditions. Additionally, the prohibition of abutting a sensitive receptor doesn't make sense when there are already substantial setback requirements. Why limit the number if they meet the regulations that are designed to protect the public interest?
so that's just a question. I didn't want to just throw this in arbitrarily without the planning commission discussing that, or the planning commissioners or subcommittee discussing that, and so, there was a number limitation on 2 of each of these in the township? I can't remember.
One campus was what we recommended, a
Mhm.
max of for the township, one major data center,
Mm-hmm.
And two and two.
one medium, I believe, or is it 2 medium?
No more than,
Medium's one,
Thank you.
yeah,
minor's two, cryptocurrency is two,
Yeah,
and major's one.
yeah. And so my question was, why wouldn't we want to limit them? Is there like a reasoning for allowing an unlimited amount of them to come in?
I mean, I don't know. That's a question for you all.
I think we're limiting them by,
Having them in an overlay.
yeah.
You
the
can't fit
size
too
of
much in that
overlay
district.
With the requirements of distances and setbacks and distances between them.
I just think we might be skating a fine line between being exclusionary and setting the township up for.
So would all
potential
these
lawsuits.
major, minor, campus, mediums, would they all fit in our overlay? If somebody came in and decided to put all these listed here in, would they fit in our overlay?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Well,
Yeah,
it,
I
Would-
think we
they
could
can vary.
potentially
Would
have
they?
enough parcels for all of that. My
Might be a
concern
one.
is, do we want to
Or two.
allow all of our available industrial zoning to be taken up by data centers? I think a single industry. Yeah, a single industry, or would we like to see available industrial spaces still available for a large diversified portfolio of business partners?
Well, isn't that overlay district pretty well built out right now with
No, we.
businesses? We have the outlet mall there, there's a bunch of
Quite a few
industrial parks.
parcels in there, but
it's appropriate for them, and they have said, we're gonna allow 2 adult entertainment industries in our township, or we're gonna allow in 2 marijuana facilities in our township. They don't just open the door and let as many come in as they can. They say, okay, we're gonna take our fair share, we're gonna limit it at 2, and we're good with that.
Yeah.
So the square footage that we're proposing here is like over 1 million, it's like, isn't it like 1,300,000 square feet total? For reference, Genoa Township right now is discussing limiting their data center ordinance to only allow 250,000 square feet of data center in their township.
There's also compounding environmental impact, compounding water usage, so. Right.
Well, I think we definitely intend to limit data center development.
There's another approach, I mean, I think it accomplishes the same thing, but, like Ann Arbor and Arlington Township, they limit the number of the licenses or permits. Fabius Township, Michigan limits the total number of short-term rentals within the township. Grass Lake, Michigan limits the, maximum, okay, so they do the size and the distance, which was the original approach, but I felt like that was way too convoluted, which is why we went like just to a number. So like if you've got an overlay, you say they have to be, you know, a quarter mile apart, well, you would inherently limit it to 3 facilities. That's how Grass Lake handles the tiny homes, economy efficient dwellings. But City of Morris, Michigan does explicitly say only 1 facility per block.
For adult.
Yeah, for adult. Yeah.
How about adjoining communities? Do you have, is it in there that obviously?
About to retire, right?
all of
Local one.
these- have approval
Wife,
from
son, can buy a
local adjoining communities and have this in their area, because they want to be protected also.
That would be town.
Currently with our overlay, I don't think it's gonna affect any, I mean, obviously if it's a campus, it's gonna affect. But distance wise, I don't, it's kinda located in the middle of the township or close enough.
This specific one is though, whether they come after us for another location.
Oh, we accommodate them with one, with one overlay, that's it.
That's limited to the industrial area along 96, so
You just can't go anywhere.
it's not like on bordering area or any of the.
I guess what the number limiting is something that we could talk to a legal
Yeah,
representative
what's
to
our
see.
better option?
Should we
Limiting
talk to the
types,
lawyer, see what they say, or?
or
If
limiting
you guys
the
are
space?
interested in limiting the number, then, we can provide some language and vet that with the attorney as well.
Yeah, I'm not against it, it's just
Yeah,
what's,
let's just see what they say.
what's our better option, limiting the space, by in turn limits the quantity, or just limiting the quantity that, and they all have to be within that same space, so
And
it's.
restricted to
What
the
area?
Yeah, but you still wanna have them restricted to the overlay.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the thing, if the overlay is only gonna accommodate so many data centers,
yeah, it's
period.
just do we wanna not?
And we say, well, you can have,
Other industrial.
Other commercial
What about?
you can have up to 6, but it only accommodates 4.
In that area, there's a lot already there.
Say there's
Yeah.
10 parcels and you've got 10 data centers, you don't want to fill them all up. When you might have an automotive company that's gonna employ 1,500 people.
Right, that's how we need to look at it too, is how many could fit in there, and,
Right, and how many people do they employ?
right.
What about limiting them by resources used also? Because we've got multiple data centers that they're proposing across the state that all want to suck on the same aquifer.
I don't think there's enough state water regulations to be able to do that.
That's another question that I had, but hasn't come up. Has Eagle piped in yet on this? I know that it was talked about before, and all that was said was that they were informed to make sure that there was water.
Equals enough.
So if they're doing a deep well, they would be required a permit from Eagle. So that would be an outside agency approval that would have to get signed off before they would move forward. So I don't know that I've heard any statements from Eagle generally about these uses.
Well, at the big meeting at the school, they said, someone that supposedly knew something said that Eagle was informed by Twitmer to make sure that there was enough water for the data centers. Other than that, don't worry about anything else. And that was at the meeting in
So
December.
we have in the ordinance, there's some, we haven't gotten there yet, cause I actually don't even know that it's been mentioned in the memo, that it was added. But power use metrics and water use efficiency metrics. One thing we did suggest adding, which Tim, you had brought up many meetings ago, was potentially limiting each tiered size facility, adding like a megawatt cap as well, and that was not added, and that was something that we thought we might want to discuss further, because we had kind of looked into that and found that it is being done, but again, we can get to that when we get further on the list.
So,
Okay,
we
we'll
moving
look
in?
into, yep,
Now we're into sound,
yep,
number 2?
yep.
Can I ask a quick question on the number of data centers to the RRC? Why 2 for cryptocurrency mining? Isn't that like super adverse and high impact to, like, even more so than a regular data center? I'm just curious why 2 allowed.
I think we limited the size.
Yeah, there was a square footage requirement of not to exceed 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, so they're
They're limited to very small.
We got 2, the most they could be is 10,000 square
Okay.
feet.
All right.
Now we're into sound.
So we included all of the required information, but there were a couple of sections that were, I guess the way we say it is that they're more informative than they are a zoning ordinance requirement or regulation.
Yeah. So that was inspired, it started, well, first of all, when I did the noise report, this particular paragraph for noise was from Fort Lauderdale, and I just recall some of the planning commission committee, it was a helpful explanation. And so then at the Livingston County Planning Commission meeting where they were reviewing the Green Oak data center ordinance, a question was raised about being able to require full decommissioning. Can you do that? They said, double check with the attorney. I went on a rabbit hole because since we were literally, that was on our to-do list, like to look at decommissioning. So that led me to learning about legislative findings and incorporating information like this within the ordinance so that if there is a lawsuit, the judge can see the rationale. It's in there plain as day, which the applicant or developer would also have been aware of at the time. And it would cause the judge to potentially, be more likely to rule in favor of the township. So we included that legislative finding language in 3 places. One was here with the noise. One was, I believe it's a couple points down, about water, water, and then also in the decommissioning. And that was the logic behind that.
Yeah, the including legislative findings in your ordinances strengthens the township's case in the event of.
Find that. Did you find the section you're talking about? Because I don't think I have.
Got this here on noise and sound studies. And after that, we've got generators, which is
So I can appreciate that logic. We've dealt with that before with, I think specifically like tree protection ordinances, having a really clear intent and purpose section does make it more defensible. So this kind of language would be appropriate in a intent section. So if we want to incorporate that specifically before the either in the intent section or before the specific sections that they're related to, we may just want to add a sub-intent section, I guess, perhaps.
In the beginning?
Yeah. Just to be clear as to what this statement is. If that's something you guys want to.
I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Moving on to 3, parking, data center parking regulations must be established in Article 18 and added to the chart, or is PC comfortable using a similar use for the guidelines? Added to the ordinance, requires further discussion.
So do we feel like the existing standards would be appropriate, or is there something more specific to data centers that you want to add?
Never looked at parking as being a problem for data centers, it doesn't seem like.
They got
So-
less employees, probably don't need as much.
Well,
parking.
So
they
with our
have a ton of
with our
space.
existing
Yeah.
parking ordinances that you're referencing in there, they will pretty much cover it?
Well, so
Probably more-
it,
Is the ordinance based on square footage or is it based on
well, so the way it's written, it's based on employees or square footage, whichever is greater, and so that may actually not be appropriate, because
Yeah.
I understand that there are very few employees ultimately once the thing gets going and allowed.
2,000 parking
You could
spots?
probably say 20 and be safe.
We'll create,
During construction would be the only time that that would be an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, so we're, I think they would,
In construction only at reasonable times, and no weekends.
We're
Not
getting,
enough traffic down the road.
How can
We're
we,
getting there.
I mean, it would have to be specific for high impact land uses, right?
yeah, so I think for high impact land uses, we would want to make it based on employees, because they tend to be large spaces.
And at that, we've got to base it on the maximum employees that could be there.
And maintenance personnel and.
Right, well, it's all inclusive of employees, but if it's routine, there's 15 people there. But if they have an upgrade project, there might be 50. We want to base it on that 50 and not the 15.
So the requirement is, the standard requirement is 1 space for each employee working at the largest shift. But you want to make sure that there's additional spaces if there is some kind of,
You have to have enough parking spaces there.
I'll come up with
fire
something.
or something.
So if it gets, in the event it was ever repurposed,
Yeah,
Can
we'd
you
have to
put
add parking.
verbiage in there that talks about during
They'd have to add
construction though?
Yeah.
Does
so
it
I mean,
temporary
but I think
parking?
we would have enough setback room to
Expand it.
expand a parking lot if it ever was repurposed. I think we're okay with
I would
what
think
you're,
so, yeah.
I'm good, alright.
This will be different number
Would,
of
would
employees.
you have people parking on the side of the roads, so they need to have parking just during construction?
Material staging areas.
So that would be addressed in the
Right.
is that in the construction or?
That has to be in there.
I think, do we talk about construction
Is that
requirements?
coming up? We can get to that?
Yes, there's a construction section, we'll get to that.
Okay. Number 4,
I'm gonna add this as an additional sub-intent section.
okay. Substations shall be located as far from the property lines as possible, ideally situated behind buildings. That was added. That's not a question. Number 6, detention retention ponds are not allowed except as part of the Drain Commission stormwater management plan. That was added. 7, walls, height, material, and other noise mitigating features may be allowed for the purpose of adhering to noise ordinances, even if they do not comply with the ordinance requirement. That was added to the ordinance, but this must be reconciled with section 14.14. The intent was to keep, their comment is, the RC's comment is the intent to keep the total height to 50 foot or less.
Yep, so that's a question for you all. Section 14.14 states that mechanical equipment is not included in the height. Data center's maximum height is 50 feet, but the mechanical, if the mechanical equipment is not included in the 50 feet, so.
Well, so in the building design requirements, it does say all rooftop equipment shall be concealed behind a parapet
Right.
wall, which is within the 50.
Yep. So we just need to go into section 14 and either change section 14 so that no mechanical equipment is exempt, or we put a statement that says unless otherwise specified in the ordinance. So that's a question to you guys. Do you wanna make
Well,
all?
if we have it required that it's hidden behind a parapet wall,
Then it'd be all
and
screwed.
that's part of the 50 feet.
Yep.
If it's part of the 50 feet, that's acceptable, but if it's in addition to the 50 foot, then, you're talking 65 foot.
But I think do we allow 70 in industrial?
No, industrial right now is 50.
Industrial is 50?
Industrial flex
Oh.
and RT, those are the 70 footers that need to be fixed.
Also, the language here, the walls and other noise mitigating features. So like this wasn't even talking necessarily about the mechanical equipment in general, but this was like if, for example, in order to meet the noise limits, they need to construct one of those sound walls, like that they put along the highway or something. But your ordinance book might say, fencing can't be, a solid concrete wall, and it can only be 6 feet tall, but maybe to mitigate the sound, it does need to be solid and it needs to be 10 feet tall. Would it be a good idea to allow, or to specify that there's an exception for noise mitigating features that are allowed to exceed height and other ordinances?
Are we talking height of buildings right now? Or are we
No,
talking-
well,
Because they're the topic they're on right now is. the
right,
height of
because the
buildings.
comment was referring to the buildings, which I think maybe, there may have been a misunderstanding of what the intent
I think what
was.
Paul suggested is the easiest way to address it, where you just put a stipulation that, similar to what we have outlined, wherever ordinances conflict, the stricter shall apply. You worded it different, Paul, but
Right.
isn't that the easiest way to address this?
I think so, yeah.
I will chime in that as zoning administrator, one of my least favorite phrases is unless stated otherwise in the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's fair.
Scavenger
Well,
hunt, you
that is
gotta find
fair
it.
enough, 'cause we don't know that, okay. So it requires you then to go find it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're searching everywhere, making sure you're not missing
So let's
something.
not do that then.
They're like, I gotcha.
Well, I guess I would argument that the, section 14.14, the exceptions here are for things like spires and belfries and, water tanks, I don't know, radio and television broadcasting. I mean, maybe we take out things like mechanical apparatus and ventilators. Maybe we don't want those to be exceptions, because maybe we want those all to be hidden behind a standard height. I mean, if this is good for the aesthetics for a data center, why wouldn't it be good for the aesthetics for any other use?
I would agree.
I agree with you.
Sure, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes total sense.
Okay.
It's
We'll
a
update-
difference of volume, though.
Yeah,
You
but
know-
that still isn't exactly what the language was referring to, though. So, like I was saying, like for fencing,
Yeah, but we're on the one above it right now. We're on
number 7, I know.
Yeah, oh,
That's talking about, like,
sorry,
it's
I'm
okay.
confused, I guess.
It's talking about, like a noise, you guys know what I'm talking about, like the walls along a freeway to buffer the sound
Right.
from like the houses next to it. If, in order to meet the decibel limits, they needed to use a wall like that.
A sound
Does-
dampening device, is that more like what you're talking about, but in the form of
A sound
wall?
dampening wall.
Okay, all right, I had it wrong.
But, and in order to do the noise mitigating, it needs to be a certain height, and maybe the height of that wall exceeds the height limits in the ordinance for fencing. A solid wall like that might technically not fit, like it might not comply with the ordinance for fencing.
We
Right, right, we're talking about-
we allowed that language in there, though, that
I think that's,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, I see,
So
I
we-
see.
we
I'm
added
so
it.
sorry.
Yep,
even if
that's
they
all right.
do not comply with the ordinance requirement, yeah,
Yes.
it's in there.
Yeah.
Yep, so we did that, I just wanna reconcile section
I
14.
got you, I'm so sorry, yeah.
So moving on to number 8, now we're into the fencing.
Gotcha.
And then you had a question, barbed wire chain, is that yours, Paul? It says already in ordinance section, no, we're good with that? It's already
Yes.
in the ordinance? Okay. Drain tile inspection requirements, it's already required. This is another one from,
Yeah, so at that LIVCO meeting, there was something, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was related to parking, like there was nothing about parking. And they said, we'd like to see something about parking, even if it's just like, parking shall comply with section 20 or whatever. They mentioned she likes to see the reference to other sections of the ordinance or other regulatory bodies. So like shall comply with the federal, FCC standards or whatever.
Who said they'd like to see that?
I think it
The
was
Planning
Martha.
Commission for Livingston County had just made a reference that you don't have anything for parking, and they said, well, parking's already covered. And she said, well, I would like to see just the reference, like, will comply with parking per whatever.
The more cross-references you put in, the more complicated an ordinance can be, and just like Jonathan was saying, then you have to go search something else down.
Okay.
When we do a review of a site plan, we go to the parking section to figure out what the parking requirements are. If the drain tile section is a requirement already in the building department, they're gonna have to.
So you disagree, we don't need those types of references, okay?
Utilities power, number 1, all utility and electric transmission lines shall be located underground. That was added in. Power use shall be capped according to the following: minor, medium, major, campus, township, data center totals. Not added in the ordinance. The township does not have the authority to regulate this. However, we can require power use reporting, which is required in section 16.23.7A1. Discussion needed, including requested by PC member. So we did talk about, I know we have talked about capping it by usage, and that generated a whole lot of different questions, right?
Yes. So
I thought we had pretty much left it, and we weren't gonna do it.
Well, so
I don't think we can.
upon further researching,
See, you asked her for something.
Oh, okay.
This is you. Because the chips are becoming more powerful, they're able, so in like a 10,000 square foot building, it might be maxed out right now at, I'm just throwing a number out there, like 50 megawatts. In 2 years from now, they might be able to double that and cram in the same square footage twice as much to, like, now you're using 100 megawatts. And the more power you use, the more heat it produces. The more heat, the more cooling, the more noise, potentially the more water, depending on the type of cooling system.
But with all these reports that are coming further down the line, isn't that,
That's true.
so wouldn't that account
I
for
don't-
that?
So,
And regulate it, I guess? If it was happening, like they may become more efficient too, right? Where they may not generate all that stuff.
potentially, yeah. So Cokeville, Michigan,
Absolutely.
they have a proposed data center ordinance, and they have like tiers as well, and they do have megawatt caps for each tier. They don't have an upper limit, for like the largest size facility. But another thought I had, because I am neck deep in this issue, myself, with transmission lines and eminent domain, as it, like if they might have, because there's a substation near the industrial area where the overlay is, but at some point they might, if the megawatt demand, the power demand in that area grows, they might need to run more high voltage wires to the area, and that requires eminent domain and takings. And so that creates future potential land use conflicts to think about. So there might be some benefit to ensuring they're not using more than what is currently available without having to open that can of worms. I don't know the legality of that, but just food for thought.
So if they can run more chips, but it's a lot more power, then they're gonna need more power. That means there might be more additional transmission lines and everything else. So if we hold them to the established amount in the beginning, I think that's a smart.
Well, there's no guarantee they would get more transmission lines. If there's not enough power to run your business where you're at,
Don't forget about the new power plant.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that, is there any verbiage about these micro nuclear plants that they're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got some stuff.
That comes later. That's in somewhere.
Yep.
So Paul, what was
I-
your thoughts on that?
I don't know if we have the ability to regulate the power demands of a particular land use, but I will. So having draft ordinances doesn't necessarily mean those things have been tested
Right. Yeah.
legally. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we get an answer from our attorney about whether we can or can't do that, but they would give us, I think, probably legal advice whether we want to be the one to test that.
Or it might be a consult with utility company. Can you provide that power without requiring?
Sure they can.
So I mean, the
Well, under
utility,
existing infrastructure is the
Yeah.
key there, though.
yeah, and I don't think that a utility company can exercise eminent domain for a private use. But again, I'm not an expert in that, so.
This kind of ties back to the, if we limit the total number, we reduce our risk on this kind of stuff down the road.
So you're gonna research
I'll ask the
that.
question.
Okay.
Yep.
And number 3, no on-site power generation shall be permitted other than renewables permitted per section F2. That was not added. It needs further discussion. Not sure if we can require this. The concern is not including this would then allowing turbines, generators, portable nuclear to be used to supplement main power supply, and these not having regulatory oversight by the township. As an example, portable nuclear being close to residential homes, there should be a set distance. We need to know what a safe distance would be. Examples, look at Memphis, Tennessee, and continue to use turbines and just paying fines. So I think they're called SMRs or modular.
SMRs, which are like, those are more like the 10-acre
Are they?
mini nuclears.
What are
and
the
then
other
you've
ones?
got- and
What are
then
the
you've got
what are the
portable.
initials for the other ones? The
I don't know
portable
the
ones.
others.
Anyway, I think they're way far away from being actually in play. You know,
Sure.
the last I read on it, they were.
Remember at the MTA meeting with Mike O'Meara, the gentleman from the township behind us brought up these portable nuclear,
Yep.
you know, and how do you make sure that there's safe distancing for that?
I'm just wondering if anything like this, is this covered in any of our other special use or site plan type things?
I don't think this is addressed anywhere.
So like it refers to Memphis, Tennessee. There's a link again in that source document. At the XAI data center, they have natural gas turbines that they were originally intended to be like backup power. But then they decided to start using them to provide baseload power continually, even though they didn't have the proper permits. And they've just been paying fine for violating that, and then they ended up retroactively getting their permit anyways, and now they're dealing with all kinds of issues from the noise and the pollution. But that's the logic behind that is, you know, clean energy, renewable energy on site, that's one thing. When you're talking about something that's literally like a mini power plant, it introduces a lot more community risks.
You wanna add it?
Can we put it into like, I don't want to exclude something that might be better in the future that we don't know about. Is there some way that we could, subject to some type of review or approval,
I mean,
or?
you can always come back and amend an ordinance if in the future technology change. I mean, that's often why we amend the ordinance, because there are new uses that we haven't heard of before, or, you know, isomatics have gone away, so we don't know why it's still included in the ordinance.
Well, that made me think of a question that I have for you. So especially on like these high impact land uses where there might be new developing technology coming out all the time. And is there a way, if you make a change or an amendment to the zoning ordinance down the road, to make it retroactive? I know that like once a company comes in and gets permitting and everything, they're kind of, aren't they grandfathered in? Is there any way to make it applicable to anything that's already there once we've discovered something glaring and made an amendment?
So, like a new regulation. when
Yeah,
we-
like if they amended something, no, so
No.
it's that they're grandfathered in, okay.
There is, they can do, Logan County's doing this, like they can offer like incentives,
Oh,
tax
an
breaks and stuff to
incentive.
upgrade.
If you're changing something, you can.
Incentivize
require them
upgrades,
to
yeah. Okay.
upgrade it.
So what do we decide to do with the on-site power?
Yeah, well, they're gonna have on-site power for backup.
They have backup generators now.
Paul, is there a way
So-
to limit them from using on-site power generation just for main power supply? Like,
So,
It's like for base load.
Or we can just specify only for use during power outages.
Power failures or.
On-site power generation is only,
Is limited to only
I-
backup power.
I guess I would throw this out there for discussion for you
partial
all.
backup power at that.
These facilities have a lot of space, they've got a lot of rooftop. If they can generate some of the power on site with renewables, with,
Oh, yeah,
why,
that's gonna
why
be-
not? I mean, cause everybody is concerned about
Yep.
the suck on the,
Right.
on the
Power supply.
power supply, so I don't know that you wanna do that.
Well, it does say no on-site power generation shall be permitted other than renewables.
Yep, so you guys wanna leave that one in there? Or add it in?
Is there a caveat for the nuclear, so that they can't, because that's renewable?
Yes, our section F2, which we'll get to, it says, it lists the renewables that are allowed, and it says no on-site nuclear.
Nuclear's renewable?
I didn't realize nuclear was considered renewable.
All right, getting close.
Really?
You guys can work on that?
Still a big pile of paper.
Hope so.
We can take page What's up? Come on, Tim, read fast.
Bring some pizza.
I was just gonna thank you for all your work, I didn't think I'd get out the request for pizza or.
Come on in, we're having a party. Join
Pizza and beer,
us.
Rob. Pizza and beer.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
I'll take wine, thank you.
Fuel storage,
They're really messy, but I think we have a wine.
fuel storage limits, requirements, it was added to the ordinance, and there was a comment there by the RRC.
Well, so there was a little bit of contradiction. If the backup generators are going to be required to be natural gas, do you need fuel storage on site?
Cause down in the draft ordinance, there's like a section about storage tanks and capacity and stuff like that. So we were just asking the question, are we limiting them to gas generators hooked up to natural gas?
Or the alternative would be diesel,
The
with
alternative
the
would be
fuel
diesel.
storage and
Propane.
bazillions of gallons.
Yeah, the gas ones are cleaner.
Oh, much cleaner, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was in there, wasn't it?
That verbiage is somewhere in
Use
here.
natural gas generators only.
Generator fuel storage
And it's cheaper for
requirements.
them to run it, so I think that'd be a win-win.
Wasn't there something about tier 4 in here though?
What's that?
Tier 4 generators?
Yes, tier 4, natural gas.
Oh, it's natural gas?
Yeah, you could do tier 4, there's diesel and there's natural
Okay.
gas.
So we're ready, we set construction applicant shall have community complaint resolution liaison available 24 hours a day, beginning with construction. The contact information shall be posted in a visible location with the road frontage as well as provided to the township to be published on the website. What's your next page go to? That's where mine's, I think, changes, right? Do you get that one?
Should be this page here.
I don't have that. You any guys want to take over?
Sure. You've been reading a lot here, Tim. So, community complaint resolution liaison, available 24 hours a day. I don't want that job. No. I've done that
With
gig
that job.
before, man. It wasn't, well, it was dealing with people that weren't complaining. Anyhow, it was added in the ordinance, it says some discussion is needed, 2 items not added, preventing 24-hour construction and requiring approval for any extensions of work hours by the Planning Commission at open meetings and only on a temporary basis. Good for 30 days at a time only. References Port Washington, Wisconsin as an example of resident impact issues with allowing unregulated construction work hours.
So I neglected to comment on this. Typically, when I see work hours regulated for construction, it's usually done through a noise ordinance. And so, I don't know, do we have a noise ordinance that does that? And usually then it's the township board who has the ability to, upon request, for certain circumstances, allow for extended hours of operation for construction.
We do have a noise ordinance, I just don't know what the hours are in there.
It's worded weird, I went and looked at it.
Construction activity between the hours of 7 AM and sunset, Monday through Friday, which varies wildly in the winter and the summer.
Right.
And then between the hours of 10 AM and 6 PM on Sunday are an exception to noise requirements. So our thought was this might be okay for normal construction sites, but data centers can potentially go on for 5 to 10 years. And noise is not the only issue tied to construction. There's the light. Their lighting lights up like a, yeah.
The sun.
And so we were suggesting limiting the hours, not just sunset, but like a specific cutoff time, 7 AM to 6 PM Monday to Friday, with the requirement that any weekend work or additional work be capped, starting by extending only to 6 AM to 10 PM, and having to be approved on a temporary case-by-case basis by the Planning Commission at a public meeting, and that extension or approval would only be good for 30 days at a time.
I would be really handy if I lived next door and they were allowed to start at 6
6
AM.
a.m. on
Yeah.
the weekend.
The one day that maybe my kids or my daughters when I went to sleep and
Yeah,
like, yeah.
That's a lot of, maybe 6:30.
So yeah, I think the suggestion was to have it at a open meeting on a temporary, basis so that you can get impact from, or feedback from the public on any impacts that are going on.
No, it's okay.
And that would be, Paul, you said that would be dictated by the township board.
I think it should be the township board because they're
Not
the
the
ones who are
planning
typically dealing with this. I do see the merit in requiring them to include a construction lighting plan, because I do know from experiences that we've had in another community, while their lighting plan meets the requirements, they have a construction lighting that does not, and while they should typically, it's not explicit, so being explicit about that, I think in the ordinance would be appropriate, so.
Okay.
I think adding a requirement for a construction lighting plan that meets all standards of the township ordinance would be appropriate.
And then if the hours would be able to be something we could put in for the board to have to review and approve, or a set standard of hours, cause sunset can go pretty late in the summer.
I mean, I guess I would recommend that the board revisit that ordinance itself if it's not effective for this, so that there's not two different bodies dealing with the same administration.
I think like a residential build, right, isn't quite as impactful as like a heavy construction site where the construction period might last a much longer duration than a typical residential or even commercial build. So I don't know, is it appropriate to have it live in the high impact land use since these are larger, more impactful build outs? Cause we would hate to subject like a home build or a smaller building to crazy construction hours if it's just gonna be like, 2 months and it's done.
But also, this overlay district is in an industrial area.
Yeah, that is true.
It's not in somebody's backyard.
So we have,
And I'm sure there's some that
This is true.
because there's requirements of how far it has to be from houses.
Does it open up a risk for the developer to argue undue hardship if they have to come back every 30 days for a updated construction window
That was
for
just-
a 10-year period?
That was just, the 30 days is just if they wanted to extend beyond the allowed
Yeah,
hours.
only if they wanted to.
Because
They got a
Well, you
deadline.
look at a lot of these sites and they're constructing all day and all night.
Right,
long.
so like that's why we mentioned Port Washington?
Yeah.
So like their ordinance, they said, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, whatever. And that was what they agreed on, and then literally like the next week, they turned around and requested 24-hour construction. And so the thought with that was, okay, if they have a legitimate reason why they want to extend their hours to maybe shorten the length of construction overall, but not necessarily 24 hours indefinitely.
What if it's
There's been
extended,
cases
like
where cases where they wanted to, they promised construction would be done like 18 months,
Right.
and then they come back, you know, and their hours are from 6 to 6 or whatever the hours were. Then they come back later and they're holding the township hostage. If you want it to be done in 18 months, then we gotta have a 24-hour construction schedule. You know, I've heard of that happening, so.
And could we make
There's
a,
certain things that can be done
Yeah,
24
pulling
hours.
wires
Yeah.
inside the building.
Inside work can
Right.
be done 24/7.
that's right where I was leaning towards, is a difference between external and internal construction.
Right, right.
So I think the concern is with external construction,
Yes.
where if they're wiring the building, and there's gonna be a lot of wiring in a data center.
You don't wanna listen to trucks and bulldozers 24/7.
Of course.
So, did we cover it?
I don't know.
Well,
We discussed it.
Having them just follow a general.
I think we follow whatever, the noise ordinance,
Or construction
if they wanna go.
section in a noise ordinance.
Cause
I
the
think ours
only
says that it's exempt if it's construction.
construction is exempt from noise within the hours. Otherwise, I didn't see anything limiting them from working overnight, I guess, as long as they meet the decibel limit, which
And if they're in industrial.
is currently 70. Of course, I suppose it would have, that's another question though, would it apply to the, okay, I'm looking at my thoughts here. But again, there's also the light, in construction, so that's what I was getting at, was the existing ordinance only talks about noise,
Yeah.
not the other impacts.
But if it's an
But if it's an industrial.
Right, doesn't matter.
You're not really affecting anybody.
Yeah, you buy the gas station and the outlet mall, they got
Right.
lights.
So Jonathan,
And some of those businesses are 24 hours over
Encourage you
there.
guys to discuss and decide what you wanna do here.
Where we at?
so then, John, the
Where we
noise
at?
ordinance.
Well, I think we could say that the construction shall adhere to the hours in the ordinance book. Absolutely no variance will be allowed. Can we modify that to be external construction? You know, actually building the building versus installing the light bulbs inside?
If you just leave it at follow the ordinance, then they want something special, they have to come back.
Hang on, let me just look
I
at
think
that.
we need to
section.
look at our,
The noise ordinance, we adjust it.
Yeah, I think that, like I suggested before, I think, making sure it's all consolidated to one place would be appropriate, and maybe there is a argument to be made, that some uses are different than others, but, if they're asking for some kind of discretionary allowance, then that would be, those would be the factors, I think, that body would consider.
I think eliminating it 7 a.m. to sunset in an industrial zone area is
It's fine.
minimally invasive to anyone's lifestyle.
I would think so, especially since it's an industrial area.
I mean, you might not like working at McDonald's on the corner there at that time, but when do you?
I think how township has a public nuisance ordinance, so you could just expand it to include like,
What's our next one? Are you good with that?
Okay, yep.
Okay, I think next we're up to, well, we've got maintenance, but there's, applicant shall submit documentation of seasonal HVAC maintenance for any facility cooling systems to ensure quiet equipment operation. That was added. Then we look at monitoring, a jobs report.
So we talked about that already at the top of this meeting, so
Right.
we'll get some clarification on that.
Okay.
Compliance. Compliance is a large section with many requirements to ensure monitoring and compliance of an operational high-impact land use. There will need to be a section covering this to ensure we are getting appropriate tax dollars, ensure noise regulations, ensure water and electricity consumption, proof of annual insurance coverages, among many other things. From ordinance in place in Henrietta, Michigan and Green Oak, Michigan. It can be worded simple like Henrietta, but thorough.
A thorough list might be needed so that the township knows what needs to be.
What to be looking for,
Yeah.
right, okay, I can see
So
that.
like the ordinance could be simple, like the way Henrietta is worded, but,
Do you have that wording from Henrietta?
I can pull it up.
So I wonder if some of this might be appropriate to put in the standard template for the development agreement, and perhaps even reiterated in this ordinance to say that the development agreement for such uses shall include elements like these things that are listed here.
Okay.
Okay.
And I can work on some language like that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Because then the beauty of putting it into a development agreement is that the developer is going to sign that too.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, number 2 is done. We're on 3, under monitoring. Revocation of special use permit. If at any time the data center operation exceeds the standards as set forth in this section, the special use permit shall be revoked and operations shall cease.
We couldn't find it in the draft.
Yeah, so we were like, does it need to be done now so it doesn't get missed, or is it someone we couldn't find it?
Let me see.
That's kind of sticky though. I mean, you're just saying we're gonna yank the permit.
16.
They're going to certainly challenge that. And if they're partway through construction,
Well, you don't wanna take it from them.
But it might be the only,
Or-
that might be the only recourse you have.
it's got teeth. I'll give it that. I mean, you just throw a fine on there, unless it's $1 million a minute, they'll just pay it.
So, the revocation of a special land use permit is already, so what we're referencing, and I put D, it should be 1623B3, which would reference the special land use section of the ordinance, which says that if somebody's found to be out of compliance with their permit, the township can revoke the permit, and that's the planning commission's purview to do. So there's already
Okay, yeah, well,
provisions in the
that-
ordinance for that.
Excellent. I understand that a little better. Okay, item 4, confirmation from the FAA about airspace compliance. We'd like to discuss this further at the next subcommittee meeting, and this would be the time to do it.
So I honestly, I was digging through all of our sample ordinances. I know we saw this somewhere, but I can't for the life of me find it now. But it seems to kind of fall in line with similar, like, shall comply with all federal environment, like the air quality standards and stuff. So.
Well, I think our building height, I think, touches upon that. It can be 50 feet.
So there was,
Anything like a cooling tower or a cell tower,
Yeah, so
you
that
know,
was, if you recall, the proposed text amendment for defining a data processing facility that the developers proposed. It was this long paragraph listing a bazillion different features, and some of them were like communications towers. And there are regulations with airports being a certain distance from an airport. Of course, there's the airport right there. Shoot, I have somewhere, there was, so Wayne, Michigan requires industrial communication towers, to submit proof of compliance with FAA. So that was.
I think that's mandatory if you're going to build one, that's required.
Yeah.
We had one not too long ago, a cell tower go up on the other side of 96.
Yep.
And, they had to get FAA clearance. I mean, you just can't build towers without it. I don't even think it matters where you're at.
There is a certain radius around the airport that has certain provisions to
Yeah.
Wranglers was getting in trouble from the FAA over the trees they wanted to put in.
Okay. And I know that,
Wow.
that subdivision of that apartment complex they put in,
Yeah,
there's some discussion about that too.
Yeah, they had to change the roof pitches in there,
Did they?
on that last building.
I know the house that was there originally got hit by a plane, and it wasn't like a 50-foot tall house.
There's lighting regulations.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to live there.
Shitty pile issue.
Especially sleeping there and just listening.
So how do we cover that, Paul?
Literally across the street from my house, man.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They're in and out in 5 minutes or less.
So we just ask
The jets
them
are a
to
little
shall
more, so-
comply with FAA
But they're
airspace.
also faster.
That one guy flies down out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we do this in general. I don't know that we may have brought it up in the past when we know that somebody is close to the airport, but, yeah, I don't know where the FAA typically gets involved, because we don't have them as a standard outside agency.
Right,
Can we just say the airport authority has to approve the project, or the height of the buildings, or?
yeah, anything exceeding the 50-foot building height must adhere to the requirements of FAA and pass airport review.
Okay.
That's a pretty coherent statement for
Nice.
20 hectare 8.
Come on, we're almost down there. We're on the last page.
Okay, mandatory performance guarantee. It says it was added in the ordinance. The comment is, performance guarantee is to ensure compliance, not the same as decommissioning bond, which is the only one added,
Did we talk about this?
and is meant to cover the cost of decommissioning. They are separate and both are needed. We did discuss this.
We did
discuss
discuss
this.
this. Did we clarify it?
I don't know. So I think this is in the compliance section, it's referring to the chart that was, related to the report that Angela had typed up. Basically trying to find another way beyond the $500 to ensure that they are complying and fixing problems. And so I've got the language of Henrietta right here. So like no certificate of approval or zoning permit shall be issued unless the provisions of this section have been met. And I think it's talking about the section of, I honestly don't know what that's referring to. So it says, where compliance is not possible because of the season or other just reason, the zoning inspector or other designated township official shall be authorized to issue a temporary certificate to establish a certain number of days for the completion of the landscaping and or screening, conditioned upon the posting of a performance guarantee in the form and amount in accordance with procedure under section blah, 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 below. When the improvements have been completed in accordance with the plan submitted and assuming all of the requirements have been met, a permanent certificate of approval and or zoning compliance permit may be issued. And so that seems to fall in line with what Angela was suggesting was, okay, if they're violating, let's say, the noise ordinance, $500 a day, they will pay that and keep making the noise. So if you require a performance bond to say you have to fix this problem, and you have 30 days to fix it, or you just submit a plan of how you're gonna fix it, whatever, and then if they don't actually start following through on that, you can draw on the bond, and I guess the township then would pay to have it done, so the citizens are protected from the noise. So that was the thought process behind what Angela had suggested, which obviously needs like thorough discussion and review by the attorney and everything, but seems like an intriguing
What about a compounding cost? Not just a straight $500 a day, but compounding that if it goes on for 30 days and you still haven't made any efforts to fix it, then the rate doubles, triples, quadruples as days go on.
That's regulated by the state, so you can't do that.
Yeah, there was a comment about the state controls that.
Since 1947, they haven't changed the amount. Yeah. Fun fact.
Well, we do have the ability to shut the whole operation down, though, right? If it's reaching enough to the.
Says withdraw.
Yeah, remove their special use permit.
And Janet, you can go over there and shut them down.
Wouldn't that be part of like their escrow and all that other stuff? performance bond?
Can we make them put in a giant off switch?
Yeah. Underground antenna, that's all.
Well, the performance guarantee, if we've got that added in the ordinance,
So my reference was to.
what limitations are there to that?
Yeah, this reference to, and it is actually J3, is about the decommissioning, and as we discussed before, the performance guarantee is about the construction process, so we don't necessarily have anything, but that may be something else that we want to add to a development agreement. And I think we could probably add something about a ongoing performance guarantee. I think it could be appropriate in light of what we know about some other experiences that communities have had with these developers or these operators, I guess. So I can see if you all want me to look for the appropriate spot to add that language.
Okay.
I do think it'd be beneficial, yes.
Okay.
Okay, item 6, penalties for violations scaled for large corporations. Revocation of the special use permit for multiple violations of the same nature. That was not added. It requires further discussion. We'd like to talk about it now.
So again,
I think we covered some of it.
yeah, again, the township already has the ability to revoke a special use permit if they're not in compliance. And I think that violations and fines or enforcement of such is a different issue that should be applicable to all township issues.
Yeah,
So
so
if we don't,
penalties for the violations, I mean, that's, I don't think you can have that on a sliding scale. You say, well, if you're a large corporation, you gotta pay this much. If you're a mom and pop farmer's market, you don't,
You're fine.
you know.
yeah, I don't think you can. I think that through the process of updating the ordinance in general, we're gonna look again at all sections, but looking at the violation sections, I think what we have and what we will propose is the most contemporary kind of violation enforcement section that would be available. So I think that would be applicable to this as well.
So are we okay with number 6?
I am.
Yep. Number 7.
Okay, moving on to number 7.
Last one.
Post-construction, pre-occupancy documentation of compliance with noise, power use, water use. What is the T use?
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Total use effectiveness.
Thank you. Power use effectiveness, total use effectiveness, and water use effectiveness.
We added it.
That was added in the ordinance. Pre and post occupancy documentation of compliance wasn't found. Only found requirement for, excuse me, let me restart that. Pre and post occupancy documentation of compliance was not found. Only found a requirement added for reporting on these items once operational under section G.7.a.
Pre-occupancy documentation.
So what we're looking here is for after construction but before occupancy documentation they comply with the noise ordinance, noise requirements, and power, water, and total usage.
Yeah, I guess I was confused by that. I don't know, pre-occupancy, they're not gonna be operating, so,
Yeah, right, that's what I was just thinking too. They won't be operating, the power and water and total use will be minimal before occupancy.
I think.
Are we asking for an estimate from them?
Yeah, I think it was the estimate, and I think you have it covered because you added it in as an application requirement, or we did and you moved it over.
yeah, got it,
I
okay.
think that's where it's at. That's probably why I couldn't find it, because it's up in that section.
That makes sense. And then this would cover anything after they've started operations.
Okay. that is our last item.
There were a few sections that did not get included, like at the end, like the severability. Do you have?
Oh, yeah, so there was some attorney drafted language at the end of, Pahakta's data center ordinance. One of them was like servability and validity, and basically it just is like standard language that says that this ordinance shall apply, you know, if there's, another ordinance that conflicts, like, it was like those standard type things, and those were pulled out, and I just didn't know, are those something that get added in at the end
When
after?
After we're done with this language and it goes to the board, then the attorneys will look at it, and when they do their adoption formatting, they would add things like that.
Okay, so that'll all come in at the attorney phase.
Am I correct about that?
So it's in the version that's published in the paper, and when you have the full ordinance, it states that at the bottom. I don't think it's generally in the.
Each section?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so it's something that lives outside of the ordinance itself, just in our, like, zoning book of ordinances? Am I following what you're saying?
So the process is that when you write an ordinance, that thing gets published in some format. The thing looks different that we publish than appears in the book. And there's several differences, one of which is that language you're talking about. So that is in the thing that we publish. If you had asked the clerk for some ordinance, this one in the future, it would include that at the bottom, and underneath that is her signature saying that she has published this, and there's all these requirements she has to do.
So it's almost like a stamp of once it's published, it gets that at the bottom.
It's the version that is getting published that is the true ordinance that has that version.
Okay.
It's just that in the zoning ordinance, every section isn't gonna have that language.
Gotcha, okay.
That makes sense. There were 3 things that we found in Henrietta's ordinance, that we thought would be worthwhile to mention. Indemnification, change of ownership, and an e-waste plan. Flipping to theirs. So they have a little, it says e-waste plan. The plan must demonstrate a sustainable IT lifecycle strategy, recovery of metals, plastic, and other components, and refurbish or repurpose, recycle, and other methods that reduce electronic waste in landfills and unregulated dump sites. And I thought this was really interesting to include because we know that these, that the server chips, they have like a life cycle of 3 years or something, and then they replace them, and so they are getting rid
That's how
of
we do it.
tons of
All
this
begins
stuff,
with
which
full
may
service every 4
contain
years.
things like PFAS,
I think it might be 5 years.
that might be
4
an
years.
issue with our local landfill,
It's crazy.
and other stuff, so, having an e-waste plan kind of fits along with like a sustainability section. I didn't know if that might be something you guys wanted to consider. Like I said, it's in Henrietta's, so if this is something you wanted to look at later and discuss next time or something. But they also had, what was it, the indemnification clause and a change of ownership clause, where the township must be notified in advance of any change of ownership, developers, operators, and or occupant of the property of a data center facility. Owners, the following information shall be provided: the current owner's name, address, and contact information, the proposed new owner's name, address, contact information, address and parcel number. If there's to be a change in responsibility for oversight and operation of the system, the name, address, and contact information of the new operator will be required, as well as any other pertinent information. And then indemnification says the applicant is required to agree in writing, subject to the acceptance of the township attorney, to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the board of trustees, officers, agents, etc.
That's kind of an important one.
Yeah. So attorneys resulting, so any of these against claims, damages, demands, lawsuits, judgments, costs, liens, losses, expenses, and attorney fees resulting from the installation, construction, repair, replacement, operation, or maintenance of the proposed facility to the extent caused by the applicant, its contractors, subcontractors, officers, employees, or agents.
And that was,
Something similar to this as well, and they also require for
Is that in the ordinance, or is that?
And this is in, we didn't have that in,
No,
it's in Henrietta, Michigan.
It's interesting. I mean, I don't know, I guess I'd defer to, the indemnification clause specifically sounds like something that would be more in the development agreement than in an ordinance. The e-waste plan, is that something you guys are interested in including?
I'm in favor of it, sure. I mean, and honestly, I think they recoup some cost by that. 'Cause, I mean, it's obsolete, say, for their AI data center or their cryptocurrency mining, but those are built as high-powered servers. They probably have reusability to some extent. I'm curious about the change of ownership, though. Can we require they tell us who they sell their business to? I mean, do we do that with anyone else?
I've never seen that before.
Sell to China.
I was gonna say, the government does it all the time, they just stop spirit from getting sold.
My thought is, also, wouldn't we need to know that anyway to ensure that we're getting a appropriate copy of insurance every year and, you know, equipment swap outs even, right? Like, we're supposed to tax on those capital improvements for them. So if it changes ownership, like, doesn't the township need to know who the new owner is so that those scheduled items can be followed up on with the new owner?
Wouldn't
we issue business licenses
happen
too,
normally?
right? There would have to be a change in the business license, a name.
It might be more at the state level than the township.
I don't know that we issue business licenses.
That's the.
I do know that, I'm sorry.
I believe they do, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just a Laura thing that gets administered locally, I don't know if there's other stuff.
And then ultimately, any site plan, land use that runs with the land is transferred to the new owner. So all obligations that would be on one owner would be on the next. And if we're requiring a development agreement, that development agreement, standard language is always gonna say heirs, successors, and assignees. So I don't think those folks would not be responsible for the same things. Would it take us an extra second to perhaps track them down? I don't know. So, I mean, that's more of an administrative thing, I think, than anything else.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's a
Real estate
deed title transfer of the property and business.
Transfers like real property.
Yeah, there'd be a title transfer.
It's recorded with the assessor.
Well, the assessor gets notification of it.
So we would get the new ownership information
Yeah.
We should.
for you guys, like you'd be able to track down for COI updates and stuff like that. So it says, it's called change of ownership, but it also, in the language, it says any change of ownership, developers, operators, and or occupants. So keep in mind, some data centers are owned by someone who leases it out to different
Yeah,
operators.
absolutely.
Right.
And just like an alcohol license, just because you buy the bar doesn't mean the license comes with it. You have to, the new owner has to reapply for the alcohol license. So when the new owners have to apply for usage.
So typically, land uses run with the land. Zoning, site plans, approved land uses always run with the land. Special land uses get transferred to.
That's land, but it's not licensed.
So,
It's an operating permit.
yeah, a special land use permit runs with the land. So it doesn't matter who the owner is, that has been approved for that site. So a little bit, I appreciate what you're saying with the alcohol license, but it's a different regulatory authority, and so.
And that is something we always consider when doing a special use permit. Someone says, I want a special use permit for this. Well, once that's granted, it's forever. I mean, not forever is the wrong word, but.
Well, it can be
It goes-
revoked if they don't comply, but it doesn't go with that. I think what you're
It's
saying
not
is
just for
that
this
guy.
guy's building.
Yeah,
It's for that land,
right.
For,
for that point forward, unless they request a change or are violating it.
So kind of along this line, you were talking about, the question came up earlier about, high impact use permitting, something application. it was like number 1 or 2 on this list of stuff that we looked at. Could you do something, an application that is like a percentage of the total cost of the project for the application fee or something? Because you don't want a business that's a $1 million business paying the same application fee as a $100 billion business for a much larger property. And then that also goes back to the other thought that I was having was, we were talking about 1,500 foot, I think is what the rule was, to notify people on the possibility of a project. Well, the project itself is gonna be more than 1,000, it's gonna be more than 1,500 foot across. So couldn't you put a multiplier on there that 5 times the size of the spot, or 5 times the parcel, all those people in that surrounding area would have to be notified?
Well, it is 1,500 feet from the perimeter of the project.
Right, but the property itself is more than 1,500 foot across.
Sure.
So why not put a multiplier on that? Because that big ass, area, I mean, anybody 1,500 foot away, I mean, you're gonna see that from 1,500 foot away driving down the road. But there's people that are gonna be affected that live 2,000 feet away that won't get told about the application.
Do you think some of that would be covered in the notifications, the press releases, things like that?
Well, it's something, but I mean, you're telling, 1,500 foot away, all these people have to be actual, whether it's a mailer or whatnot, that's sent to these people. I mean,
There may be some merit to that too, considering this is going in the industrial areas with, precisely because there's not a lot of residential. So if you might end up notifying other industries, other industrial property owners, how many actual residents will get the notification.
So as I understood it, the justification for 1,500 feet is because this use is more far-reaching than other.
Yeah, currently it's at 300
uses.
feet, so.
Yeah, it's 300, so we're.
If you make a determination that the impact of this is 1,500 feet, then the distance should be 1,500 feet. If the impact is 2,000 feet, then it should be 2,000 feet.
Yeah, well, that's obviously variable, we can change it.
Well, so I mean, I think you have to make the determination, and then we also have to, like I said before, add that justification to why we're doing a larger notification radius.
I was gonna say, why can't the township put something on there that if the property itself is 2,000 foot across, that for 6,000 feet around that, all those people have to be notified?
So why does the notification radius expand if the site is big?
Because the environmental impact will expand. Because if you've got a little tiny shop, a 1,000 square foot building, how much effect are they gonna have on the area? 300 foot away, okay, but now we're talking about 1 million square feet and a half mile across area. That is gonna have an awful lot bigger effect. 1,500 feet from that, you could throw a rock and hurt somebody. But now, you're talking about somewhere that's a half mile across, that has a much bigger ability to affect a greater number of people than where 1,500 foot, cover.
There is one more thing Henrietta has, I think it's the last thing on theirs. And it actually relates to something we mentioned earlier. They have a planning commission review clause, which says due to ever-changing technical capabilities of this industry and of new technology in general, the planning commission shall have the authority to review and consider alternatives in both dimensional requirements as well as physical development requirements found within this ordinance. Now, it seems like you kind of already have that authority, so I kind of interpret this to mean that it would apply to like pre-existing uses, but I don't know.
So the zoning ordinance is not a police power ordinance, so I don't know how that could retroactively apply. I don't think there's a legal way to go back and tell somebody that they could have to change that based based on the state laws.
I have one other thing I did want to forget to ask you about, on page 22 in the bottom document, the last document, there's item 3, performance guarantee / financial insurance. And it lists under item A, prior to an issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall post a financial guarantee in the form of a letter of credit, bond, or escrow account acceptable to the township. I would just have a question, is a letter of credit equally or more legally binding as a bond or an escrow account?
An escrow account, I think, is the best, because that would be actually cash on hand.
It's cash in the bank, right?
Letter of credit and a bond are more difficult to cash in, but that's why we rely on the legal counsel to determine the language that's used for each of those.
Okay, so is the, either between these 3 or 2 of these 3 or whatever, the attorney's gonna determine which one it needs to be worded as, or? Because right now we have a letter of credit in there, and I just didn't know if that was stringent enough.
For such an impactful use.
Yeah.
Like for other uses, it might be fine, but for, you know.
For a multi-million-dollar project, I just didn't know if a letter of credit was enough.
I don't know. I'd ask that question to the attorney. I think the amount, the guarantee amount is gonna be pretty huge, and so to expect cash on hand might be more than we could legally ask, but the form of the letter of credit or the form of the bond, the language that goes into that is what we expect the attorney to look at and say, yes, we believe we could cash this in if we needed to.
Unless they go bankrupt.
Right.
Well, no, I think the banks are the ones who hold those things.
Yeah, because a bond is guaranteed, isn't it?
Right.
Regardless,
Yeah.
Is there a way to word it where it would be something like escrow account or a combination of escrow and bond or letter of credit? Like, so that we're requiring an escrow account essentially for as much as possible that we're allowed to ask for, and then the balance would be made up by that letter of credit or bond?
I can't answer those questions, but I'll look into it. We'll ask the legal
I just
counsel.
wanted to make sure the township was covered financially.
Yeah, I think so. Look at my agenda, I think that was our final item.
That was a good meeting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Paul, do you need any more?
I think I've got plenty of direction right now, so I'm sure there'll be more, but let's work on what you've given me, and we'll.
What's your next suggested course of action for us?
I think that I've got a bunch of homework to do for you, so let's get together again in a month and do this again.
As a subcommittee,
I
or
think so. I mean,
you wanna do a subcommittee again?
That's up to you.
What are you bringing back next time? Will it be more of a, I know you,
I mean, I think I've got pretty good direction here
Well, I
based
think
on
I-
this draft, so
We could see what feedback we get from our citizens committee on the next draft.
Well,
And
well, I think,
I think
are you guys good? I,
I mean,
I
I
suppose
missed
that's
the
a valid
question, I'm so
question.
sorry.
I think
you
if
guys
we-
good?
With it, yeah, I mean, there's some additional notes that are in there that you guys got.
I mean, I
but
think you
it's
guys have
nothing
done a
new.
phenomenal job, and Paul, I commend your patience to, to try to put them all together.
Process you've ever been through?
It's the best.
Rewrite and rewrite.
Kennels, man, kennels, holy crap.
I guess I'm just asking, do we need another subcommittee meeting?
Perhaps not. I mean, I think we've got a solid draft and we've got a handful of questions, so if you feel comfortable taking this back to the larger group, we could do that.
We can do that too. I mean, this actually went pretty quickly.
It's not gonna be ready for this month's agenda.
Okay, well,
But perhaps
that's
June.
understandable.
Will we get it about 2 weeks prior to the meeting so we can review it?
We don't get our packets that.
Yeah, we get,
Well, you're asking for
We're
a
lucky
lot.
to get them like 3 or 4 days before.
already checked, we might get it Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, we usually get it on Thursday before the meeting.
So I'm out of the country June 23rd, so let's shoot for that for the next discussion.
What do you know, I'm gonna be out of the country then too.
Yeah, I am not available for that next June meeting, so I don't know. Let us work on that. We'll convene, well, I guess if the committee doesn't wanna get back together again.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, should
Not
we,
opposed to
should we
getting
all,
back
or at
together.
least you guys review the finalized draft that, so Paul's gonna take a lot of information from tonight. Do you guys wanna see that and make sure everything made it in there where you wanted it
Maybe
before it
do one
goes
more
to
then.
PC?
Yeah, why don't we share this draft back with you guys?
Okay.
And you'll have a chance to look at it, review it, provide feedback, and then we can see how close we are to getting on that June meeting, or perhaps even the July meeting. When's your moratorium up?
We just extended it for another 6 months.
Okay.
Oh, okay, well,
Okay,
that takes a little pressure off.
Yeah, no, I just mean it doesn't make so much pressure for the June meeting.
So
Yeah.
when's the next meeting?
The next planning commission meeting is in 2 weeks, but this won't be on that agenda.
Yeah, May 26th is the next, after that's June 23rd, which is the one Paul can't attend. So we may wanna refrain from tackling it that meeting. We can touch upon it though. July 28th is the one after that. And I've gotta think that we should be
Do
able
we
to have.
wanna set a subcommittee meeting, or do we just wanna share the ordinance and decide?
Why don't
Well, honestly, if you
why don't we
send us the
shoot for you
ordinance-
all sharing that, we'll send it to you subcommittee. If you think it's ready, we could probably package it for the June planning commission meeting, at least to introduce it to them, and then we can have a more robust discussion in July.
And then we can bring the rest of the planning commission in on,
Yeah.
and up to speed.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll give them a couple meetings to
Yep.
come up to speed also.
Well, are we talking about another subcommittee meeting then? If you email it to 3 of us, and we don't get together to discuss it, then how do we know anything's done? I mean, I can look it
Great
over.
question.
Well, you
And
can
send
send
your
it to the full
feedback.
subcommittee and we'll make sure it all
Oh,
runs.
yeah.
I think they'll make
Be
sure.
red lined.
We'll look at it.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Wonderful.
Likewise.
Ladies,
Thank you for your attendance, sir.
Thanks for your help.
Thank you for listening to us.
We try.
I don't know, let's,
I mean, send it out for our review. I
Yeah.
just want to ensure that that happens and that real feedback comes from it.
yeah,
And I'm not so sure that's going to happen from, from our living room sofa as it does in these, well, these are actually pretty comfortable chairs.
I'll read this later.
Right, it's, if we've got a meeting set, then I know what's going to happen.
sounds like we probably need to do another subcommittee meeting.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we'll get the draft out to you, and then Jonathan can figure out when to herd all the cats in the same room.
And that's it. If we were,
His favorite task.
if we're going to review it one more time before it goes to PC, I think we should review it.
I mean, we have the time, but, right? Jonathan, your thoughts?
I mean, don't forget that not only do you need to get it before the planning commission, you have a public hearing at some point, but in between, before you get to the public hearing, it needs to get attorney review. So I don't think it's a bad idea to get a draft to you guys and review it, decide if it's ready to go to the planning commission, get them started on looking at it, right, have one meeting. Maybe then after that, if there's no big comments, big changes, maybe we get attorney review after that. And once we get attorney review, maybe then the public hearing gets scheduled.
Sounds like.
That seems absolutely
So
logical.
when you
Okay.
get it done, if you get it to us, and then we can decide if we need a subcommittee meeting, is that what you're,
That's what I'm saying, if you see stuff that's like, wait, right, so maybe need a subcommittee meeting.
okay?
If you don't, if you all feel that it's sufficient, that we've captured what it is that you guys wanna capture, maybe then it goes to PC.
So does that mean the subcommittee wouldn't be reviewing the potential final draft?
No, the subcommittee would be.
Yeah, that's fine here, though. Isn't the subcommittee,
So
Include-
the 3 PC members and the RRC.
yeah, that's how I interpret that. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
No, technically you are the subcommittee, they are the RCC,
I see.
or
Is there any problem sharing it with them?
That's up to you guys.
Because, I mean, they've provided
I don't think-
seriously good input on this,
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily want to cut them out of it at the final step either. Though I I'm expecting there's gonna be a little that would need any adjustment. It should be
Yeah.
pretty, I think we've hammered it out
It should
pretty
be
thoroughly
pretty
here
good.
tonight. But also as a CYA, I want to make sure we did it.
I don't see why they shouldn't see it.
I don't have any opposition to it.
More
at all.
eyes, the better.
Members on it, and
Okay, so let's go that way. We'll submit it over to the resident, committee and us three. And we can review it and see if there's need for another, subcommittee. All right?
Okay, sounds good.
Sound good?
perfect.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
We have a motion from Tim, second from Matt, because that's the only first thing.
Thank you to the research committee for all the time and hours you guys put in. For the rest of the staff.
Let's sit over there.
You guys are